love and prosperity to all of humanity on planet Earth. This is Abdul Bey with Lodium Moorish Radio, Monte, Georgia. AMPAG, ante meaning before Georgia. Okay. Today is January 8th, 2023, Gregorian calendar. But most importantly, it is the illustrious prophet's birthday. Honors to Prophet Noble Drew Ali for all that he brought us, keeping in mind that a lot of his literature was corrupted by the converso Moors of the temple. Earlier today, Sister Yeshrin Akasha Elrose Bay had a presentation on Facebook, on a live presentation, in which she was going over the Constitution and bylaws. She was breaking it down. But something stood out to me, which I already knew was the case, but it just reaffirmed the fact that the prophet's literature was corrupted. He couldn't have said both. Sister Yeshrin, do you have your Constitution and bylaws handy?
I can get it real quick, but not necessarily.
Okay. Because I wanted to touch on Act 6 to show and prove the corruption in his literature. So in my version of the Divine Constitution and bylaws, it states that we are part and parcel of this said government. Partial, Partial. When you read yours, I believe you said part and parcel. Am I right or am I correct?
You are correct.
Exactly. So the question is, did the prophet say both? I absolutely doubt it. So in the spirit of the prophet, let me share the screen real quick, even though we're not gonna, hold on one second, you all. In the spirit of the good prophet's solar return, let's go here. Because today we'll be going over the resolution 1514 of the United Nations. But first, which is this here, is literally called Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and Peoples. But real quick, before I do, I just wanted to take the time to give due honor to Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Without his teachings, even though much of it has been corrupted, the basics and the foundation of it has remained the same. What is the foundation? Your divine creed, right? What is your divine creed? You're a Moor. Can someone please mute their mics? There's some background noise. There's a lot of background noise. Somebody please mute your mics.
You can mute him, Abdul.
I know, but not when I'm in share mode, because I can't see anything when I'm in share mode. I have to take it out of share mode in order to mute people. Thank you for muting yourself. We got to give honors to the good prophet for his works, and the divine creed, bringing back our divine creed, which made us whole again. What do I mean by that? Prior to his arrival, we were 3/5 of human beings because we were missing our divine creed and our nationality. Now, what is our nationality? Well, it's not Moorish American, even though that's what the temple says. But I can show you something different. But before I do, in the spirit of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and in the spirit of honoring Prophet Noble Drew Ali, real briefly here, I would like to recite the Moroccan prayer, commonly known as the Moorish American prayer. And it states, Allah, the Father of the universe, the Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen. Islam. All right. So if I were to go to the one-on-ones and I go to question 31, the question states, what is the modern, not ancient, modern, what is the modern name for the Moabites? The answer to that is Moroccans. Are we Moab and Moabites and Moabitesses? Yes or no? Somebody, that's an actual question.
Yeah, we are.
Okay, I thought so. So what's up with the contradiction in question 12, 13, even 14? What is the nationality? What is his nationality? Right? So 11 says, where is Noble Drew Ali? When was Noble Drew Ali born? In the state of North Carolina, 1886. What is his nationality? Moorish American. What is your nationality? Moorish American. Why are we Moorish Americans? Because we are descendants of Moroccans and born in America. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. If I was a descendant of Chinese and I was born in Brazil, will I suddenly become Brazilian? That's a real question. Someone answer, please.
That's right, Wazir. You got that absolutely right. No, we would not. And that is a contradiction. I never even thought about that till you just mentioned that. And then it's another one that says, doesn't it say something about a man cannot change the descent nature of himself? Or something like that.
Unless his power extend beyond the powers of the great God Allah.
Wow, man. You know what? I never even thought about that, man. That right there, that's deep. If you from North, if you're a descendant of Moroccans born in America, you cannot be your nationality can't be more American. It has to be Moroccan, but you may be a citizen. You can give up your you might could be a citizen of that fiction or whatever. I don't know.
Well,
But your nationality stays.
That's exactly what you are as a Moorish American, as a citizen of the United States. You're in the cares of the world. You are under American jurisdiction, subject to American jurisdiction. But the point is, did he really say that? Was that an attempt to? I know Sister Yeshrin was making that point that because see the 101s, if I were to read it, it's 101 questions for Moorish American children. Children. Which means what? We're supposed to grow up and come back into adulthood. And as adults, you're dealing with your national identity in the proper person. And so what is it? Is it Moorish American or is it Moroccans? Which one is it? If I'm a descendant of Moroccans, why would my nationality just suddenly change to Moorish American? That's pretty egregious. It would be Moroccan. But keep in mind, again, like I said, on 31, he stated, what is the modern name for the Moabites? Moroccans. Okay. Chapter 47, Circle 7 Quran. Let me get it out. I'm not gonna, let me read it word for word. So, chapter 47. Chapter 47. Okay. Is that 47? That's not 47. How do you write 47 in Roman numerals? Egypt, the capital empire of the, yeah, that's it right here. The inhabitants of Africa. Okay, where are we? Let me go straight to this point. Okay. The Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit Northwest Africa, they were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire. Okay. So we are the true possessors. So if we are the Moabites, right? It says the Moabites from the land of Moab, who received permission from the pharaohs of Egypt to settle and inhabit Northwest Africa, they were the founders and are the true possessors. On question 31, it asks, what is the name of the Moabites? And it says Moroccans. Chapter 47 says that the Moabites from the land of Moab are the true founders and the true possessors and are the, were the founders and are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire, with their Canaanite, Hittite, and Amorite brethren who sojourned from the land of Canaan seeking homes. Okay, so if we are the true possessors of the present Moroccan Empire, then what in the world would that make us? That's a question. Somebody answer, please.
Moroccans.
Man. So where does this Moorish American thing come from? Did the prophet really say that? See, we have to read his literature with discernment, not because the prophet wasn't right. It's because Moors aren't right. It's because Moors sold out the temple. It's because Moors sold out their people. Keep it in mind, Prophet Noble Ali stated, be careful, Moors. It would be your own infestors and turbans who would take you back and bring you back into slavery. Or take you back into slavery, however, whichever word he used. But it's just, the concept is still the same. C. Kirkman Bey, I saw evidence that he was a colonel for the United States Army, and he was recruited by J. Edgar Hoover as a, I don't know, grand governor, grand sheiky, whatever, and threw us under the bus. That's just one name. Another name, the Moorish American Society of Philadelphia, with their speedy and thorough Americanization of these former Moors. I just wanted to make that point clear. I just wanted to touch on that real quick. Sister Yeshrin inspired me to speak on it briefly. And being as though today is the Holy Prophet's birthday, or should I say born day, I thought it was appropriate to point out the corruption. Excuse me, I'm sorry. The corruption that has overtaken the temple. That's why 100 years later, which is literally a century, we're still where we're at, or they are still where they're at. But today is a new day and age. It's a new era in time. And the prophet prophesies that there will be Moors coming in with their eyes wide open that will put all you old Moors in the back. J. Jermaine Bay, the chief judge of consular court for Alodia Morris Palladium, Ante, Colorado. He's the Moor with his eyes wide open. Who is he putting in the back? Taj Tariq Bey, Cujo El, Hakeem Bey, C. Freemanel. Who else? Asir the Duke of Tears. All of those old Moors from the old paradigm who keep talking the same BS that's keeping us in a trick bag. That's keeping us subjugated.
For revenue.
I'm sorry, for revenue, for finance. While at the same time telling you that that's fake money and it's Federal Reserve notes and it's fiat and all that. Okay, well then why don't you provide the information for free then? Because after all, nationality is free. And so if nationality is free, anything dealing with your nationality should be free. It is not the colonists or the Europeans who's charging us for packages that don't work and only have you end up in jail. All the students of Taj Tariq Bey have ended up, whether direct students or indirect students, have ended up in jail. I'm what you would call an indirect student of Taj Tariq Bey. I've never met him. I just followed the process based on his teachings on social media, plus RB Bey publications. With my nationality card and my name change and proclamation affidavit sent out to 7 different locations. And it worked, and it worked, and it worked until it didn't work anymore. Until this chubby, bald-headed cop grabbed all my documents, threw it on the ground, pulled out his taser, and told me, get out the car. Before that, it was all good until I ran into him and then the courtrooms, rejecting their jurisdiction as a Moorish American. Just by that name alone, you're accepting the jurisdiction. So the good brother J. Jermaine Bey is the new Moor coming in with his eyes wide open, who's putting Taj Tariq Bey in the back because Taj Tariq Bey is the main corporate of all of it. Yes, Taji guy.
And there are babies, melanated babies, being born right now with their heads up, same day of their birth, not even 24 hours old, with their eyes open, head up, looking around, very aware. Many of them.
Very aware. Very aware. Well, this was for the fourth generation. But what makes his eyes wide open? International law. International law clears up so much, so many misconceptions. Keeping in mind that Prophet Abu Ali was taught the principles that he brought to us overseas, allegedly, right? In Egypt. So he was dealing internationally, was he not? What did he come with? The Moorish flag. That's an international demonstration. He came with the Moorish nationality. That's a international demonstration. Moors are international. We're known all across planet Earth. What else did he do? Allegedly, he went to Cuba, to the Pan American Conference. That's an international demonstration. The Act of Algeciras came out in 1906. Prophet Abu Ali was born in 1886. That makes him 20 years old when that treaty came out. You gonna sit here and tell me that Prophet Abu Ali had no idea about the Act of Algeciras, yet he stated, children, you are plainly rich? Because it's an Act of Algeciras, which means he also knew about the Treaty of Madrid, specifically Article 15. How do I know that? Okay, take a look at your 101s. That demonstration, that illustration on the front of the 101s is the demonstration for the Treaty of Madrid, Article 15. What does it say? I'm on, oh Lord, did I just do that? I'm on the expatriation document. I could go to the Treaty of Madrid, but I've already got this document pulled up. Oh Lord, I done lost the page. Just that fast, just by touching one button, it just messed up everything. I tell you what, let's go to the actual treaty.
Can you send me this document that you have, the full document you just showed? Because I don't have.
The expatriation document?
Yes,
I surely will.
thank you.
I gotta touch it again, real quick. Can you all see that? Let me increase the font. There we are. Any subject of Morocco who has been naturalized in a foreign country and who shall return to Morocco shall, after having remained for a length of time equal to that which shall have been regularly necessary for him to obtain such naturalization, choose between entire submission to the laws of the empire and the obligation to quit Morocco unless it shall be proved that his naturalization in a foreign country was obtained with the consent of the government of Morocco. So the prophet was stepping out of the cares of the world, i.e. American jurisdiction, onto the rock of salvation, Morocco. You can't spell rock without Morocco. You can't spell more without Morocco. And he's carrying the woman. So our respective states are doing exactly what that illustration is showing you. Why am I saying that? Because we're choosing between the entire submissions of the empire, meaning choosing between the American jurisdiction and the Moroccan jurisdiction. Well, that's an easy decision. Let's go with the Moroccan jurisdiction. But not only did we choose the Moroccan jurisdiction, through our legislative branch, we are carrying the Moabite, the Moabitess, the matriarch, like the prophet was carrying the matriarch who was unconscious in her arms. We put the mothers, the matriarchs, back in power through the legislative branch. Why am I saying that? Because according to our constitutions, there can only be matriarchs who take the place of the legislative branch. No man is allowed. Only the mothers. We put the pen back into the hands of the mothers, which is why you must be of Moorish matrilineal status in order to hold that pen. You can't be Mexican. You can't be white. You can't be Korean. You can't be anything else. As long as your mother is of Moorish matrilineal, because your mother is who identifies your true nationality. So if your mother is a Moor, then you're a Moor. No questions about it. There's questions when you're dealing with the patrilineal status, because your mother might have been something other than a Moabite, but your father is a Moor. You see, your true bloodline, your true national descent comes from the mother. Also, the mother is the only one who can bring you into life. So through the legislative branch and our governments, when we establish the governments and we issue out the certificates of live birth, her signature goes, the head of the legislative branch, which is the Sayaraha, her signature, her autograph goes on the birth certificate, signifying what? That she's bringing you back into full life out of the cares of the world. And what is the cares of the world? American jurisdiction. American jurisdiction, not maritime, but admiralty law. Maritime is de jure law because it deals with the laws of the seas. Common law deals with the laws on the land. But admiralty laws is when the sea has come onto the land and buried everybody. The Noah's Ark. That's what Jay Bay was breaking down in the first 3 videos or so. That's what they're utilizing as admiralty law, which is feudal law, negative law. That's the cares of the world. That's why he's stepping out of water. What water? Admiralty law, because the water came onto the land and drowned everybody. So now we're all dead at sea. So the matriarch, through her signature on the birth certificate, she's bringing us back into full life onto the land. What land though? Morocco, not America. With that, I'll begin the read. Let's see here. I don't know why my computer does this crazy stuff. Okay. So we're going over Resolution 1514, which is a declaration on the granting of an independence to colonial countries and peoples. Right? But first, let's touch on the United Nations Charter real quick. A couple of articles we want to touch on. Law and history goes together. That's one good thing that the good brother Taj Tariq Bey has taught us. But the Moor with his eyes wide open has took it to another level. So that decolonization document, Resolution 1514, came out in 1960, through which many of the African nations had gained their independence. They utilized that same document, but that document wasn't necessarily for them. That document was for us. They benefited from that document. See, when it comes on to the restoration of the Moorish Empire, it's like a domino effect that goes across planet Earth for all indigenous peoples. All indigenous peoples can utilize, but all indigenous peoples are Moors. But what type of Moors is the real question, right? But we're all the indigenous peoples are Asiatic, melanated, however you want to put it. So in 1952, the United States was taken to court by France. The United States lost the case, but they won something. They did. A judgment was in their favor. What was the judgment? That they are able to maintain limited criminal and civil jurisdiction over the land. I want to ask you all on the line, somebody answer this, please. Why did the United States, why were they granted the limited jurisdiction by the ICJ over Morocco? Why do you think?
I'm gonna take a stab at that because the Moroccan states were not there to commission as a Moroccan statehood. So who else would they give that jurisdiction to?
Who's saying that?
Yeah, Sharon.
Excellent answer.
Islam.
Somebody had to, hold on one second, brother. Someone has to maintain law and order. So if they had relinquished the jurisdiction right then and there, who was going to operate the empire? What was going to happen to the empire? What was going to happen to law and order if the true possessors of the Moroccans themselves are in a status of acquiescence? But not, let me make this point clear. It's because of our sellout conversal Moors that we didn't even know nothing about any of these treaties, far less Resolution 1514. But you're absolutely correct. They had to they were given the limited jurisdiction only because Morocco had acquiesced, and they weren't operating their state governments. Good brother, you had a question?
Not a question. I think it's sort of like a statement. I think that jurisdiction is considered de facto.
What jurisdiction? The United States American jurisdiction?
Yes, yes.
Well,
It's
I mean,
de facto. But
yeah,
yeah.
It is de facto, but it's still a fact nonetheless. Right? They're still in operation nonetheless. So after that judgment, what comes out in 1956? Public Law 856. That Moors like to stand on based on the AA 111 222141, whatever, saying that the United States has relinquished extraterritorial jurisdiction. Well, it's not true. They relinquished it based on a bill, but it hasn't been enacted, it hasn't been brought in, it hasn't been signed into law by the president. And that's the stipulation in the bill, that they will relinquish only when the president deems the time appropriate to do so. Okay, so now what is the time, when is the appropriate time for them to relinquish their jurisdiction? That's a question for anyone. When is the time for them to relinquish, when is the appropriate time for them to relinquish their jurisdiction?
When the Moors come online with their states and show competency.
Period. Now we're in a competent state to maintain law and order in Morocco, as set forth in all of our treaties, specifically the Act of Algeciras. We were supposed to institute reforms to maintain peace, security, and the prosperity of Morocco. But we were asleep. We had our feet up. We were snoozing. The alarm clock never went off. And if it did, we slept through it. Actually, the alarm clock did go off. It was Noble Ali. We slept through it. Why? Because after his assassination, we've been put right back to sleep with egregious nationalities that don't exist nowhere in law, such as Moorish American. What else happened? So you had 1952, the case with France versus the United States. You also had the, I forgot what year it was, I think 1957. The Tasha Bay talks about Rex 80, the Rex 80 plan. What is it called, y'all? Rex 85 or something like that plan?
Rex 84.
There you go. The Rex 84 plan, in which they themselves said that Moors are bound to the continent by bloodline. They said it in that document. A lot of things transpired in those years.
King Alfred plan, right?
What was that? Yeah, the King Alfred plan, exactly. Which brings us to 1960, which is Resolution 1514. But before we go into Resolution 1514, we also have to look at the charter. The charter came out in 1945. What does Article 1 say? The purpose of the United Nations charters are the purpose of the United Nations are to maintain international peace and security. Would that not be considered uplifting fallen humanity to maintain international peace and security? Would you all agree with that? Anyone?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So to maintain international peace and security, and to that end, to take effective collective measures for the prevention and removal of threats to the peace, and for the suppression of acts of aggression or other breaches of the peace, and to bring about by peaceful means and in conformity with the principles of justice. So you see peace in there, you see justice, love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and international law, adjustment or settlement of international disputes or situations which might lead to a breach of the peace. So we have an international dispute, don't we? We have an international dispute with the United States International Organization. But more germane, Part 2, Section 2, to develop friendly relations among nations based on respect for the principles of equal rights and self-determination of peoples. The charter and much of the documents that come out of the United Nations, all the conventions and resolutions, etc., it's coded and it's vague. If you utilize the proper discernment, you know exactly who they're talking about. What is the code word here? Peoples. What peoples? Indigenous peoples. What indigenous peoples? Moors. Moroccan Moors. So you can read it like this: to develop friendly relations among nations based on respect for the principles of equal rights and self-determination of Moors, and to take other appropriate measures to strengthen universal peace. The self-determination of peoples, the self-determination of Moors. That's why this is very germane, this particular section of the article, because Resolution 1514 deals with the self-determination of peoples, non-governing territories. It also goes on to say to achieve international cooperation in solving international problems of an economic, social, cultural, or humanitarian character, uplifting fallen humanity, and in promoting and encouraging respect for human rights and for fundamental freedoms of all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. So the charter, the spirit of the charter, the purpose of the charter is based in the obligation of the Moors. But since the Moors have been acquiescing, the international community had to take on the job. through France, by the way. It was France who enacted the charter coming out of the League of Nations, coming from the Treaty of Fez of 1912, in which they were giving the power and the authority and inauguration. Let's go to it real quick. It was an inauguration. So it says right here, the government of the French Republic, His Majesty the Sultan, have agreed to establish in Morocco a new regime comprising the administrative, judicial, educational, economic, financial, and military reforms, which the French government may see fit to introduce within the Moroccan territory. This regime shall safeguard the religious status, the respect, and traditional prestige of the Sultan, the exercise of the Mohammedan religion, and of all religious institutions, in particular those of the Habus. It shall include the organization of a reformed Sharifian Moxen. The government of the Republic will come to an understanding with the Spanish government regarding the interests with the government, which this government derives from its geographical position and territorial possessions on the Moroccan coast. In like manner, the city of Tangier shall retain its recognized distinctive characteristic, which will determine its municipal organization. Let me go to the preamble. I think that's where it's at. The government of the French Republic and the government of His Sharifian Majesty, the series of inaugurating, there you go. That's what I was looking for. Inaugurating, they were inaugurated. So the office that they had taken, which was the office of the Sultan, right, was an inauguration, which means it had political legitimacy under law, international law. But what was their purpose? A regular regime in Morocco, not at Morocco, not of Morocco, in Morocco, based upon internal order, because everything was out of order. So therefore you had to reign in the order, and general security, which will make it possible to introduce reforms and to ensure the economic development of the country. Have agreed upon the following. So it's about introducing reforms to ensure the economic development of Morocco. So France was entrusted with this task. Why? Because we were asleep, snoozing, as we still are. To be part 4, to be a center for harmonizing the actions of nations in the attainment of these common ends. So now let's jump over to Article 55. Let's see what Article 55 says. There it is right here. This is the charter, y'all. You can go just Google United Nations charter and it'll come up. And you can basically go through it. Article 55, with a view to the creation of conditions of stability and well-being. Doesn't that sound like the purpose of this? Well, they're talking the same language in the Treaty of Fez as it relates to Morocco, but in the charter is not calling it Morocco. It's just basically keeping it generic, calling it international community. But the international community is Morocco, with a view to the creation of conditions of stability and well-being which are necessary for peaceful and friendly relations among nations. You see? Based on respect for the principle of equal rights and self-determination of peoples. Self-determination of Moors, with a view to the creation of conditions of stability and well-being which are necessary for peaceful and friendly relations among nations, based on respect for the principles of equal rights and self-determination of Moors. The United Nations shall promote higher standards of living, full employment, and conditions of economic and social progress and development. Those are reforms. Those are reforms. So we didn't do it, so the charter got to do it. Higher standards of living. That's a reform. Full employment. Those are reforms. And conditions of economic and social progress and development are reforms. Solution of international economic, social, health, and related problems. Can y'all see my screen? Okay. And international culture and educational cooperation and universal respect for and observance of human rights. and fundamental freedoms for all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. Saying the same stuff. They're basically saying the same thing. Article 1 and Article 55 is saying basically the same exact thing, because it's about the upliftment of fallen humanity. All members, this is just bonus, Article 56, all members pledge themselves to take joint and separate action in cooperation with the organization for the achievement of the purpose set forth in Article 55. All members, that includes the United States, that includes Russia, that includes China, that includes Great Britain, that includes France. All members pledge themselves to take joint and separate action in cooperation with the organization for the achievement of the purposes set forth in Article 55. Let's go to 73. Now, what does Article 73 say? Keep in mind, we've already went over Article 73. Oh, you're gonna let me go. All right, now we can scroll. Okay, Article 73. Members of the United Nations, members, that includes the United States, members of the United Nations have or assume responsibilities for the administration. Now listen closely, you all. I'm gonna start over again. Members of the United Nations, which have or assume responsibilities for the administration of territories whose peoples, Moors, have not yet attained a full measure of self-government. Did you guys hear what I said? Do you understand what I just said? Members of the United Nations which have or assume responsibilities for the administration. So the United States is assuming the responsibilities for the administration of the Moorish territories who have not yet attained a full measure of self-government. Do you understand that? Please, somebody say yes or no.
Yes.
Self-government recognize the principle that the interest of the inhabitants of these territories are paramount. Our interests as Moroccans, as Moors, as indigenous peoples are paramount, period. And the United States can't do anything about that. And accept as a sacred trust your trust territories. So the chartered colony dependency state of Georgia, that territory is a sacred trust that Allodium Moorish Palladium ante Georgia has reclaimed through our paramount emanating document known as the Constitution, through our dominions under uti possidetis jurisdiction. Please, somebody unmuted themselves. Please mute yourself, please. The background noise messed up the video on the YouTube channel. I would appreciate that. Can you all please remain on mute unless you have a question or something to say, please. I appreciate it. I lost my train of thought. What was I? Through our longitude and latitude described in the dominion section of our Constitution, we have reclaimed this trust territory formerly known as state of Georgia, which is now Allodium Moorish Palladium ante Georgia. Not to say that the state of Georgia doesn't exist, but they do exist as a dependency state, meaning that they fall under the authority and the jurisdiction of AMPAG. Same with DMT, same with Maru, same with AMPAC, same with New Mecca, same with Ante, Michigan, same with Unami Buffalo Nation. So the territories are paramount and accept as a sacred trust the obligation to promote to the utmost within the system of international peace and security established by the present charter, the well-being of the inhabitants of these territories. This is a mandate. This is an obligation, and promises must be kept according to international law, specifically the term that goes pacta sunt servanta, which means agreements must be kept. You will find this in the Vienna Convention on the Laws of Treaties of 1969, 61, something like that. I don't recall the date, the year. Part A, to ensure with due respect for the culture of the peoples concerned, to ensure with due respect for the culture of the Moors concerned, their political, economic, social, and educational advancement, their just treatment, and their protection against abuses. Well, how do you enforce these? How do you enforce these principles against the colonists? Can someone take a stab at that? How do you enforce these principles against the United States?
This is Yesharin, Moroccan statehood.
Moroccan statehood through your three branches of government, specifically consular court. But you can't do it as no individual. You have to be under the protection of your own vine and fig tree. You got to be confessing your own before you can make these moves. These are big boy moves. These are big girl moves. This is for grown-ups. It's time to put away our childish ways, which is why they call us minorities, because we're dependent upon them. Could you please write legislation for us to not kill us anymore, the police brutality? Write legislation, please, United States. They're looking at us like, hold up, but you are the Moroccans. You are the law. And you want us to write laws for you? Okay, here's affirmative action. Gone somewhere, etc. Get out of here, you little children. Knowing that we are the adults, but we have reduced ourselves, or they have reduced us with the help of the conversal Moors, etc., to the mental status of a minor. It's egregious. Part B, to develop self-government. See, so we are to develop self-government, to take due account of the political aspirations of the Moors. It says of the peoples, but we're going to reword it as of the Moors. Make it more germane to our situation, right? To develop self-government, to take due account of the political aspirations of the Moors, and to assist them, in the progressive development of their free political institutions, i.e. what? Your governments. According to the particular circumstances of each territory. So AMPAG has a certain particular circumstance. DMT has a particular circumstance. Maru has their own. Unami has their own, etc., right? According to the particular circumstances of each territory and its peoples in their varying stages of advancement. Each one of our states are going through various stages of advancement. Together as a whole, as a collective, our states collectively, our 7 states collectively, in that status, we're still going through our varying stages of advancement, individual states and as our states collectively. Based on that, it is their job and their obligation. Pacta sunt servanta. Agreements must be kept. You signed on to the charter, which means you have taken the obligation to do what? Assist us in the progressive development of our free political institutions. We're going to beat them at the ICJ. That's why the Monday classes are so important, y'all. Any one of you who have checked the first box of sovereignty and independence, your wazirs, your kazi, and your sayaraha, specifically those 3 branches, need to be on these classes because we're going over the playbook. We're going over the triangle offense that we're going to put on the United States. And if you're not present, you won't know what your position is. You won't know what to do. If Pippin didn't show up to practice, he wouldn't know what his obligations are in the Triangle Offense when they're playing Utah, the Utah Jazz. Everybody got to be on the same accord. Everybody got to be on the same page. So it's not a matter of undue influence, as some of these wazirs would like to say. It's a matter of your responsibility as a head of state when you took that oath to your constitution. It is part of your obligation to show up. It's not a thing about no friggin' undue influence. Keeping in mind, you don't even know that language. You got that language from someone else. Islam, I digress. C, to further international peace and security, right? D, to promote constructive measures of development, to encourage research and to cooperate with one another. You see, friendly relations. And this is the reason why we cannot be a belligerent with the United States. This is the reason why we can't come in here talking about, oh, we're gonna hang you, you got to get off the land, and all these vengeful ideologies that we carry based on the fear and the hate that has been developed over time based on the false narrative that's been taught to us by the Moors, and also the falsehood in the historical events that were taught to us growing up as children. Also keep in mind too, what we experienced. That has nothing to do with anything. I had an epiphany the other day. Brother Hakeem, are you there?
Islam, I'm here entertaining the topic.
Okay, real quick. Do you recall that one symbol? There's Prophet Noble Ali brought several symbols. He brought the circle 7, right? He brought the crescent and the star. Do you recall that one symbol with the hands shaking, 2 shaking hands?
Yeah, I recall.
Okay, is one hand melanated? Is the other hand pale?
I don't recall it being colorized, but I did see a black and white.
I've seen them both ways, Abdul.
Mhm.
Seen them with the one hand melanated. I've seen them with 2 hand melanated. I've seen them with 2 hand Moors. I have.
For the most part, I've seen them with one melanated hand and one pale hand, one albion hand. What is that? What is that symbolizing? Friendly relation. It symbolizes friendly relations, political diplomacy, a truce, if you will. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. The only way to make it happen is you have to be in the spirit of love instead of hate. And that's what's being promoted in the charter. Something that the Prophet promoted back in 1913. The charter came out in 1945. But the preamble to the Act of Algeciras came out in 1906. The Act of Algeciras talk about equality, economic liberty without any inequality. There must be equality across the board in Morocco. If you're going to contract nationals of other countries, you cannot make a decision based on nationality because it takes away from the equality. You make a decision based on the merit and the competency of the work, not based on nationality. It's about equality. It's about friendly relations. It's about diplomatic relations. It's about diplomacy. It's about handshake. It's about the handshake. In other words, we're going to have to come back to the table to negotiate with the colonists, with the Albayans, and a truce is going to have to be established because they didn't start this mess. Keep in mind, we started this. Seizing their ships on the Atlantic Ocean, taking them into slavery, taking all their women into the harems, forcing them into sexual activities and stuff, taxing them on sight, mistreating them, as early as 1700s, 1800s, early 1800s. So when you look at the letter with George Washington to the Sultan, when he said that I regret the hostility with those regencies, what do you think he was talking about? We were beefing with the Europeans. We were mistreating them. We were doing all types of stuff to them, oppressing them. We lost power. They came back, did the same thing to us. So now when we come back into power, because the clock of destiny says that we're going to come back into power. So when we come back into power, what we're going to do? Start the same crap all over again? Somebody got to be the adults in the room. And we got to put an end to this. But here's the good news. Here's the good news. This is where the Moors need to be encouraged. The truce between us and the Europeans, it's not in no way, shape, form, or fashion based in our dependency on them. That's the good news. The truce is based in our dominant position being reestablished in Morocco, with them being the dependency state up under our jurisdiction. That's the truce. Now we have control. Now we have the governance. Now we say how things shall go or not go based on international law and upholding their human rights and their treaty rights. As long as we uphold their human rights and we uphold their treaty rights, we can basically do as we see fit. But the point is that truce is based in us taking back control. So we're not talking about a truce and we're still subjugated. Oh, hell no. We're talking about a truce based on us taking back control of our vast empire. That's a major difference. And that's an ongoing revenge. If you want to be in the mindset of revenge, positive revenge, meaning that under love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, we do the right things, diplomatic relations, diplomacy. We have a truce, right? And as long as we stay in that lane, we will forever, ever and ever and ever maintain control of Morocco.
Question.
Because we lost control of Morocco because we violated those principles. Somebody had something?
Question, Noble. Greetings. How art thou?
What was that?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't wish to take a left turn in the conversation, but just an insertion based on information you're conveying. And if I may use the sense number 3, we know that 3 is government. We know that 3 and government starts with family, mother, father, and child.
Yes.
And so, from my perspective, I incorporate every aspect of our ancient science and still modern science into every act of life activity. I say that to say this. You mentioned truce. Truce requires 2 parties. Okay, so but there's a popular dialogue that's going on globally, and it includes a third party, which are known as the Khazarian Jew, the black nobility, the dirty Moors, skin folks who are not kinfolks. So, how would you, when restoring our righteous act and our rightful place as earth right and birthright, what would your advice to the righteous kindred be in relation to how now we seek out and deal with these dirty Moors whom we're using the pale skin to block us in the institution and creating a diverse of contradiction on the land? What would your advice to the brethren be?
Beautiful question. But first, brother, could you please introduce yourself? I'm not sure I know who I'm speaking with.
Forgive me. My appellation is Nasik Khel. Presently at the what they call New York territory. A sister of our dialogue with you a few days ago, to which it was extended that we wish to have a dialogue with you. So you gave us the link and we're here now.
Jana Musa Bey, yes.
Jana, exactly. Islam brother, yes.
Islam. Okay, excellent question. I appreciate the question. Oh, I lost my train of thought by asking you what I just asked you. Briefly, ask me that question one more time, real quick. Briefly.
How would you, in summary, how would you inform the kindred in associating themselves or identifying and associating themselves with what is present to call the Khazarian Moors, the king folks who are not king folks who primarily.
Yeah. That's what it was. Yep. Our own. Well, our present condition, had it not been for our own people selling out and working, well, all right, there's two different levels to this. You're not speaking from the sellout level. You're speaking from the authoritative level of the dirty Moors who are working behind the scenes, utilizing the colonists, or should I say the Albayans, as what you would call Mamelukes. Well, whether it be Moors on a behind the scenes working with the Europeans as the face of the situation, because there's, behind King, what's his name? The new king, behind Queen Elizabeth, there's Moors behind her. There's Moors behind the Pope. There's Moors behind Biden, right? But then also you have your subjugated Moors, your Moorish proteges, who have assisted the colonists, and therefore even the higher level Moors that are behind the scenes. Both of them need to be adjudicated. They both need to be dealt with. If it wasn't for both of those two different separate types of Moors, we wouldn't be in the situation, because the Europeans, or should I say the Albayans, they don't have the power to subjugate us to the degree that they have subjugated us and for the time that they have done so. It only happened because of our own people. Whether it be a Moorish protege, which is one who's under the jurisdiction of the United States, or a Moor that's empowered, the Black nobility that's behind the scenes operating, utilizing the Albayans as the face of the movement. So to answer your question directly, they both need to be adjudicated before we even start dealing with the Europeans. The world needs to know that we are more than willing and capable to hold our own accountable. That is called self-governance. Notice that I read in here to part B, to develop self-government. Government means law and order. Government means that you must be able and willing to adjudicate any and everybody who violate Moroccan laws. And what the violation that we have dealt with is a violation of human rights. We've already paid our karmic debt for that, right? I just explained what we've already, I just went over what it is that we've done, how we fail, right? Based on going against love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. So now when we come back into establishing diplomatic relations with the United States, the colonists, or the Albayans, establishing a truce, everybody on planet Earth needs to know that anyone that has been involved in the subjugation of the Moors, which is human rights violations, crimes against humanity, which is morally condemnable in international law, they need to be adjudicated, and it's our people need to be adjudicated first. That's not to say that the Albayans get away with it. Oh, they'll get adjudicated too. Obviously, everything will be done in the strict sense of the due process of law. Everyone has a chance to go through the due process of law, which includes investigation, right? Mediation, arbitration, adjudication. But upon consular court or the International Court of Justice or the ICC finding you guilty, you will do time, whatever that looks like. So yes, good brother, that's what I would add. That's my question. That's my answer to you. You would need to adjudicate our own and put them under the jail once they're found guilty, period. Along with the Europeans, all of them need to be in one prison for all of them, in population with everybody else. the so-called white man and the so-called black man, both of who came together as in international law, it's called the principals and the accomplices, right? Both of y'all need to get dealt with, the principals and the accomplices. And you always share a cozy cell to yourselves while the rest of the world moves on. Does that answer your question?
Your answer is much honored, and we will dialogue further in depth and a one-on-one level, time permit, inshallah.
Inshallah, good brother. All right. Any other questions? E, Part E, to transmit regularly to the Secretary General for information purposes, subject to such limitation as security and constitutional considerations may require. Statistical and other information of a technical nature relating to economic, social, and educational conditions in the territories for which they are respectively responsible, other than those territories to which chapters 12 and 13 apply. So Article E, or Part B of Article 73, is talking to two people, us and them. So we have to transmit with them regularly, on a regular basis, the new developments that may have taken place in our states. But then the United States and or any other colonizing state must also do the same as it relates to maintaining what? International peace and security, but also the assisting of the, where is it at? Part B, Section B. Let's read it again. To develop self-government, to take due account of the political aspirations of the Moors, and to assist them in the progressive development of their free political institutions. So we need to be transmitting that to the United Nations, meaning putting them on notice, putting it on the record. Through what? Our judicial orders. Well, it wouldn't be a judicial order that would be sent to the United Nations, but more of a cover letter to go along with the judicial order that you sent to the United States, or any other new development that may have taken place in your state. Like, for example, let's say you remove the wazir that has to, and then you elected a new wazir, that also gets transmitted, or you inform the Secretary General of the United Nations of all those events that take place in your state. But more importantly, here's the thing. Understanding that it is the United States' job to assist us in the progressive development of our free political institutions. If they do not acquiesce to that obligation based on the consular court orders that we send the United States, see, that's why you want to transmit regularly, because everything that you send to the United States, you want to send to the United Nations, right? Sure. Letting the United Nations know, hey, listen, we communicated with the United States through our judicial orders. We're invoking Section B of Article 73 of the Charter, in which states that it is their job to assist, it's their obligation to assist us in the progressive development of our free political institutions. They're not adhering to it. We just need you to know. And every time we communicate with the United States and they don't acquiesce to our consular court demands, the United Nations need to know. Okay, I'm going to ask the floor. The floor is open. Why do you think that would be a power move for us as Moroccan nationals trying to regain our sovereignty? Why would that be a powerful move for us to transmit with the United Nations and let them know of the fact that the United States may or may not have, or let's say may not have, conceded or acquiesced to our judicial orders? Why do you think that?
So there'll be some sort of action following that to for the incentive to do so.
Okay, that's a good answer, but that's not what I was looking for. Anyone else?
I would say for the purpose of any potential judiciary action that might be rendered against them for failure to comply with duty assistance.
Islam.
And I would say that it's the first process of the due process of law, putting them on notice.
Both of them are, all three of them are good answers. The last two are the ones that I was looking for.
I would
We
say
gotta
for
have-
transparency.
It's exactly. We gotta have evidence of them maintaining extraterritorial jurisdiction when we go to the ICJ. And the ICJ is gonna do what? Go to the records of the United Nations to see about the transmissions. And there they will see that the United States have been ignoring our consular court orders. You see? That's why we want to transmit it with them. So that the International Court of Justice, when we take them to court, they'll have that on the record available as them maintaining extraterritorial jurisdiction, especially even after our states were established, understanding that upon a proper claim, they must relinquish extraterritorial jurisdiction immediately without any interruptions, period. You guys understand what I just said?
Islam, brother.
Islam.
Quick question in relation, forgive me, but I have a encyclopedia of related matters. I am sure that in time past, some of these questions may have been already answered as to why I would not choose to take up much time of this session in these questions. But as you talk on certain matters, I'm just propelled to ask these questions, if I may. And of course, in listening to you, I know you're presenting what you're presenting in a condensed matter, and you're also presenting things in short term, long term, because as we know it right now, looking at the continent, rephrase, looking at territory presently known as USA, comprised of all 50 states, okay? Their demarcation. We have, it is stated that there's billions of souls presently occupying the territory. Majority of them is still in that unconscious state of knowing whom they are and knowing what actually is a Republican form of government. I say that to say this, right? In order to bring certain judiciary action against the USA to totally relinquish, okay, extraterritorial jurisdiction and so forth, that would require an effective establishment of the three branch of primary government, the executive, judicial, and so forth, which means that we have to now start putting structure on land, effectively expanding beyond the realm of the US territory, and therefore once that is established in an effective manner, and then we notify them to totally relinquish and turn over all resources and assets back to the organic people and so forth, then we can have the, I would say, the consensus of the masses to carry out our action. But if not, it would be like one man against the world.
When you said established structures, what did you mean by that?
Well, structure within every structure within every realm of the territory. In other words, we have to have the three branch of government: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial branch. So therefore, for example, let me just use an illustration. All what they presently have, our mercenaries and highwaymen, has to either be totally removed and replaced with Mufti Sharifian, whom will act in an official capacity when called upon, not to be harassing the people. Okay, we have to have the consular courts, set up in a various districts, as well as a possible headquarters, just like they have a Supreme Court, a structured body. So we now know that the people are aware of the total restoration. But in my estimation, not having that done to an effective level, and then trying to go, like pretty much layman speaking, go at war with this US de facto system that has been in operation for so long, would be like an act of suicide, if I may put it that way. If you get what I'm trying to say.
Yes. Well, you're right in many aspects, but you're I don't want to say the term, I don't want to say wrong, but you're incorrect about one. You're right about the fact that we need three branches of government. So our respective interdependent autonomous states are established as exactly as such, with 3 branches of government. But we don't have to remove the police. We have to control the police. Look at the screen. What you're looking at is the Act of Adjudicating. And you're looking at Chapter 1, Declaration relative to the organization of the police. That article or that chapter deals with us taking control of the military and the police. The police is the military is the police. As Jay Bay pointed out, I think in 85 or 84, I think it's 85, they serve 2 different functions. The police is for your internal affairs, the law enforcement of your internal affairs, and the military is for the defense dealing with foreign affairs. But they both hold guns. Okay. They both have arms. So Article 1 is that's why Article 1 is Chapter 1, I should say, is the very first one that they talk about. A declaration relative to the organization of the police. And right after that, Chapter 2, a regulation concerning the detection and repression of the contraband of arms. So we have control over the police and the military, and we have control over the arms of war. So it's a matter of us taking control of the entire system, which belongs to us in the first place. What's the other principles or the other chapters? Chapter 3, an act of concession for a Moroccan state government. Moroccan state bank. So the first one deals with the police. The second chapter deals with the guns. The third chapter deals with the banking system. The fourth chapter deals with creation of revenues and tax and returns of taxes, right? Chapter 5 deals with the customs of the empire and the repression of fraud and smuggling through our ports, etc. And then Article 6 or Chapter 6 deals with a declaration relative to public services and public works. All 6 of those chapters deals with us taking back control in the governance of our vast empire. So that would already be in place. That's the whole purpose of economic liberty without any inequality. There's 3 principles: sovereignty and independence, integrity of domains, and economic liberty without any inequality. So your sovereignty and independence deals with the establishment of your state. There's 7 states currently online in Morocco who has checked off the first box, which is sovereignty and independence. All of us are currently working on integrity of domains, which deals with your laws, your legislation, the law enforcement, which then leads you or brings you into economic liberty without any inequality, which is basically taking over the entire empire. As you see, Chapter 1, Chapter 2, Chapter 3, Chapter 4, Chapter 5, Chapter 6. Now, when we go to the ICJ, you cannot go to the ICJ without your 3 branches of government, because the ICJ only deals with disputes between states. And if you got a state, then that means you have your 3 branches of government. The difference with us and everyone else is that the colonists had taken over our system. They didn't come in and institute a new system. They came into our system. We fell asleep. They took it over. So what we're doing now is waking up and taking it back. And so that's why I was saying, when it comes on to establishing a truce and friendly relations with the Europeans or the colonists or the Albions, I should say, it's in our best interest because it's based in us taking back control of our empire, not the other way around. Did I answer your question?
Yes, brother, I'm with you 110. And like as I said in a few moments ago, in relation, there has to be of course quite a bit of vetting, because I'm very much acquainted with the Act of Algiers and the Treaty of Algiers 1906. And of course it did make mention of the police, and in my comprehension studying the document, the police of course were underneath the Sharifian, and they were supposed to, the jurisdiction was supposed to be for the colonists, so they could regulate the order within that region and so forth. So I have no doubt that we are saying the same thing, but because of the interest of time, it has to be condensed as to why, again, I said without doubt that when in time we talk one-on-one and opportunity to present itself, then we can expand more. But yes, I'm very much on tune with what you're saying thus far.
Islam, brother, I appreciate that. And I appreciate the fact that you've been studying and reading over the Act of Adjudicating. It's absolutely necessary for us Moors to do so if we're serious about regaining our sovereignty and independence in Morocco and taking back control of the government. Keeping in mind that there's a lot of responsibilities involved in this. It's more than just about traffic tickets and such. It's a participant has enabled closed. Okay, never mind. I was reading something that came on the screen. Lost my train of thought when that happened. I'm sorry. Lost my train.
You were saying the importance of reading the document,
Yeah.
and because ICJ.
Exactly. We need to understand. What I was saying is that there's a lot of responsibilities that's involved in this. That's way beyond, not paying taxes and traffic court situations. You're talking about within Morocco, okay. So when you say Morocco, you specify Morocco, because Morocco is basically the entire planet, right? So the Morocco we're talking about is Al Maghrib Al Aqsa, Morocco of the farthest west, northwest of Mexum, the North Gate. So within North Gate, within northwest of Mexum, we've got 300 million plus people that we're responsible for. And if you look at the entire world, planet Earth, we're looking at about 7 billion people that we're responsible for. That's a lot of responsibility when you're talking about taking back the empire. Are we really serious about this? Because if we are, then keep in mind, that's the responsibility that we're facing if we want our sovereignty back. And I think this is just conjecture, but I think that's probably part of the reason why we remain asleep, because it's a daunting task and nobody want to, we're too daggone lazy to want to have to take back control of everything, because you're talking about some serious responsibilities. But that's why it's not for everyone. It's only for those who got the eyes to see and the ears to hear. Islam?
Abdul.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about the psychological implications of the masses when they get this new information. I mean, they're having a difficult time right now just dealing with the Republican Party. So those individuals have gone rabid. So what do you think about the so-called base mentality when they get this news? What do you think of that?
What do I think about whose mentality? Say that again, brother.
I'm sorry, about the Republican base that they rely upon to determine which way political winds blow. We're going to have to be standing in the wind of this same blowback. You understand what I'm saying? So we say, okay, everything looks theoretical as far as the law and the guidelines are concerned. But yeah, I don't think that people are not lazy, but it's going to be some serious tug of war going on with the people, like he was talking about the Sharifians. Have anybody yet confronted Mr. Kemp about the
interesting question? Okay, well, let me answer like this. The blowback that's going to take place, did you see, or do you remember, I should say, the January 6th insurrection with Donald Trump?
That's the model. That's the model right there.
Now, who did the blowback take place upon?
Well, it was on them, but I think I heard Trump say something about we in a dry run right now. It's what I last heard him say before they got deep up in him. He says, we in a dry run.
But my point is, that's the blowback. The blowback is going to be against the United States International Organization or the United States Municipal Corporation, because it was them who was cheated and hypothecated their own people. They put them in a dead status as a corporation when they performed the coup d'état on the United States of America Republic based on the Act of Congress of 1871. So the blowback ain't coming to us. Why is that? Because we're here to uplift fallen humanity. We're here to institute reforms for the betterment of all peoples, including the American citizens. The blowback ain't coming to us. We're gonna be sitting around.
Let me say this. I've heard there was this one protest, and I remember some commentary in the crowd talking about, we are not ready for no Sharifian law. And up until you brought that up the other day, I said, wait a minute, I heard that before. So I think behind the scenes, somebody is probably educating them about what could possibly happen. I think they're aware of this.
And I don't care what they ready or not ready for. I wish I could show you my face so that I can ask you, look me in my face and tell me, dude, does it look like I care? I don't care what.
Well, I know we all care, but like I said, this ain't no light work.
But what I'm saying, let me finish my point. What I'm saying is we should not care about what the Europeans or the Albanians feel or not feel. The question is, what are we gonna do? Listen, they're
ready to do. I think there's a lot that's ready to do, but I'm just saying it ain't no light work. That I mean, you doing the diplomatic side.
Well, the light work. When you say it's not a light work, meaning that is going to be hard work or intense work. That hard work and intense work is establishing economic liberty without any inequality. It ain't got nothing to do with that.
Yes.
You know, they're nothing. They're nothing. They will capitulate to Moroccan laws. They have no choice. Okay. Let me go back to the act of adjudicating.
I want to just add, based on the comment the brother just made, but you said that they're not ready for Sharifian law. My question is, do they know what Sharifian law is? Are they misconstruing Sharifian law with martial law? Because that, based on the statement you made, it appears as if that's what they are insinuating.
Right. That's a good point. Do they even know what Sharifian law is, what it's based in? You know, because if they really understood that it was based on love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, then they have no concerns there. Go ahead, Brother Hakeem.
Yeah, it may be some discrepancy with the statement itself, because what the U.S. government is generally talking about is Sharia law, not Sharifian law.
Oh, Islam. There's a difference. Exactly. I appreciate that point of interest, good brother. But I went back to 102. I came to 102 to make everyone understand on this call. Anyone who may even think that they're not gonna abide by our laws, or we're gonna have blowbacks and any whatever other doubt. Article 102 states, every confiscation, fine, or penalty must be imposed on foreigners by consular jurisdiction. You have no choice but to abide by Moroccan laws. Otherwise, confiscation, fines, or penalties will be applied to you. Do I need to say any more? Oh, they will respect the law. And if they don't, confiscation, fines, or penalties. It's on you. It's on you, Billy Bob Thornton. It's on you, whoever else, Mr. Redneck from around the corner and
I'm with you.
with a red truck, with a red pickup truck. We don't care how they feel. What we care about is all we care about is that they must adhere to Moroccan law. And if they don't, and they break Moroccan law, every confiscation, fine, or penalty must be imposed on foreigners by consular jurisdiction, period. End of discussion. Islam. Now let me move on to the actual subject matter real quick. It's not too long, but the preamble is. So it's called Resolution 1540, which is nickname, but it's actually called Declaration on the Granting of Independence to Colonial Countries and People, the General Assembly. Mindful, and this is the preamble, mindful of the determination proclaimed by the peoples of the world in the Charter of the United Nations to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights and the dignity and worth of the human person. See, they had to distinguish person from humans, because in international law, person is a state. In municipal law, which is U.S. law, person is a corporation. So you have to distinguish between a corporation and a living being, which that's why they use the term human person. And the equal rights of men and women and of nations large and small, and to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedoms. Can someone mute your mics, please? There's some background noise coming from your call, from your mic. Conscious of the need for the creation of conditions of stability and well-being and peaceful and friendly relations. Then we just read that all through the charter, chapters 1, articles 1, 55 and 73. Okay. Conscious of the need for the creation of conditions of stability and well-being and peaceful and friendly relations based on respect for the principles of equal rights and self-determination of Moors. It says all peoples, but that can be converted into Moors. And of universal respect for and observance of human rights. What are human rights? Our rights to self-determination and our rights to self-governance as the indigenous peoples of the land. And fundamental freedoms for all without distinction as to race, sex, language, or religion. Didn't we just read all that? Without distinction of race, sex, language, or religion. Recognizing the passionate yearning for freedom. Moors, do you not have a passionate yearning for freedom? In all dependent peoples. So Moors have been dependent peoples, depending on what? The United States laws, the United States jurisdiction. And the decisive role of such peoples in the attainment of their independence. Are we not seeking independence, Moors? Aware of the increasing conflicts resulting from the denial of or impediments in the way of the freedom of such peoples, which constitute a serious threat to world peace. Considering the important role of the United Nations in assisting the movement for independence in trust and non-self-governing territories. I'm gonna repeat that again. Considering the important role of the United Nations. So the United Nations is the devil, huh? This is the narrative out there in the world, that the United Nations is the devil and they want to put everyone in the concentration camps and FEMA camps and enslave everybody. Well, the language don't speak that way. Considering the important role of the United Nations in assisting the movement. What movement? Our movement of statehood. We got a new movement. We're putting the old Moors in the back with their old paradigm and their old movement of enforcing the United States Constitution and invoking USC codes and standing your square on Supreme Court case laws. That's the old paradigm that got us all locked up, including me. The new paradigm is statehood. That's the new movement. So the United Nations is assisting in the movement for independence in trust and non-self-governing territories. Each one of those 50 states, so-called corporate states, are trust territories. When you combine them all as the United States of Morocco, it becomes the vast estate. But each territory is a trust territory. And within those trust territories, i.e. the state of Georgia, the state of Alabama, the state of New York, etc., within those territories, the indigenous peoples of those territories are non-self-governing or have been non-self-governing for the past 250 years. But it's a new day and time now. It's a new era in time now. And everyone must worship under their own vine and fig tree and confess their own, i.e. becoming self-governing. And the United Nations shall assist in that process, which includes all its member states, which includes the United States of America and the United States International Organization. Did I make that point clear? Do you guys understand where I'm coming from with this? Somebody tell me yes, somebody tell me no. And I'll
Affirm.
Positive, yes.
Islam. Recognizing that the peoples of the world ardently desire the end of colonialism and all its manifestations. Everybody wants decolonization. Everybody's tired of the United States.
And we are ignorantly keeping it moving, keeping it going by not recognizing who we truly are, calling ourselves Black, et cetera, et cetera.
Including Moorish Americans. And it's partially a fault, our fault. We can't, escape that. But primarily, it was the conversal Moors and the dirty Moors and the Negro sellouts who have put us in this position. So they can receive their 501c3 kickbacks and their mansions and their salaries, et cetera, and their privileges.
In the Mandela era, and when South Africa was fighting for their freedom, the Moors there, they went on their own first. They went after the people who were supporting the police departments, what do you call them? But they went on their own first.
Utilizing what? Resolution 1514.
No. I meant they started attacking them and killing them.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that's against international law, but
Yeah, but they did. Yeah.
Islam. Convinced that the continued existence of colonialism prevents the development of international economic cooperation, impedes the social, cultural, and economic development of dependent peoples. Dependent Moors, we've been dependent. Let me read that again. Convinced that the continued existence of colonialism prevents the development of international economic cooperation, impedes the social, cultural, and economic development of dependent peoples, and militate against the United Nations ideal of universal peace. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Affirming that peoples may, or should I say, affirming that Moors may, for their own ends, freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice to any obligations arising out of international economic cooperation, based upon the principles of mutual benefit and international law. Moors can freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice. Come on, y'all. Why haven't we exercised this long ago? This document came out in 1960.
Because we were ignorant to it.
But we weren't just ignorant to it just by osmosis. We were kept from it. We were put in a trick bag. We were put in a Moorish American trick bag, the most dangerous trick bag in Morocco, because it puts you in a stateless status if you go into the courtrooms rejecting their jurisdiction. So you got two different types of Moors. You got the civic Moors and you got the temple Moors. The civic Moors are the ones who are ending up as stateless Moors because they're thinking that they're utilizing the laws to their advantage when in reality it's to their disadvantage. Whereas the temple Moors, they're just docile. They just adhere to the United States laws. No, I gotta at least give some kind of credit to the civic Moors because at least they were fighting back those laws, but they were doing it in an incompetent way. That put us back into because I was one of them. I was a civic Moor. I never been a temple Moor. Well, I started off in the temple, but I realized it's church, so I kept it moving. I wanted to deal with civics. But that was a trick bag in and of itself as well. Believing that the process of liberation is irresistible. Believing that the process of liberation, Sister Yeshrin was talking about the word liberation on her Facebook live today. interestingly enough, is irresistible and irreversible, and that in order to avoid serious crisis, an end must be put to colonialism. Let me read that again. Keeping in mind that we've already went over this document, but it wasn't dead. It was a side note type of discussion. Believing that the process of liberation is irresistible and irreversible, and that in order to avoid serious crisis, this was in 1960. Since 1960 up until 2023, what have we had? Serious crisis dealing with the United States because we hadn't put an end to colonialism in Morocco. An end must be put to colonialism and all practices of segregation and discrimination associated therewith. Weren't we dealing with segregation back in the 60s? This document was written for us, Moors. It just doesn't say Moors on there. It's coded. It says peoples. Welcoming the emergence in recent years of a large number of dependent territories into freedom. Welcoming the emergence in recent years of a large number of dependent territories into freedom and independence, sovereignty and independence, one of the three triple principles, and recognizing the increasingly powerful trends. Oh, that trend ain't become powerful yet. Oh, it's becoming powerful now. When you got Moors in Jamaica, a compound state republic, they don't know nothing about us over here, but they're establishing their stuff over there in that side of Morocco. Oh, it's growing. It's getting serious around here. Now it's increasingly powerful. Now there's a trend even more so now than back in the 60s. In the 60s, that trend dealt with the Africans. In the 2000s,
Islam.
right? It now deals with Moroccans and Northwest Mexico. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah. So regarding a compound, since you mentioned them, on the 6th, they were celebrating their annual independence, and the Chief Richard Curry, was sporting a Moorish fez. Now, of course, it was a great celebration, unlike last year.
You said Chief Richard Curry was rocking a fez, brother?
Islam.
Oh, wow.
Now, it's well documented on his Instagram, but just to show you how some VHS scholars are, they immediately started attacking him on Instagram.
Oh my God, of course.
This particular VHS scholar. And so, of course, I had to, I made a post tagging the chief, letting him know, disregard all negative comments from the slanderer.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And keep doing what you're doing, because it's about chess, not checkers. This is international law. This is governance. This is state business. This ain't no temple business, you know? And so the Moorish Maroons on the island, and I should know because I'm from them as well, they have a treaty that they need to, until they have everything established, they need to adhere to that, but they need to use it to their benefit. It will be completely unwise if they were to follow the advice of this particular VHS scholar and completely abandon that term.
Exactly.
Thereby abandon the treaty that is attached to it. So it's about chess, not checkers. You use what you have to get to where you need to go.
That's right.
But but like I said last year and the year before, the chief has some good Moors in his corner. Like, he's got some very in tune Moors that are assisting him, and I'm proud of them for that. You know, I'll support them 100%. Just regardless of what they're going through, all the COINTELPRO operations that the government of Jamaica is doing, they're handling it so well, you know, and I'm extremely proud of them for that. And there, for us at least, for the Moors who are indigenous Moors who are establishing state governments, they and AMPAG, excuse me, are like the beacons that are paving the way for the rest of the Moorish states. You know,
Islam.
so I applaud them for doing what they're doing, and hopefully they continue doing the good work.
If I may add to that, one of the issue I come to realize with the Maroons, with the treaty, is they need to come to the awareness that they have to flip it. Okay, they gotta look at it, they gotta look from the other side of the mirror, because right now they are occupying, what is it, east, west, north, central, if I may say, part of the island as the territory given to them, or territory belonging to them, when in truth and fact, the territory, which I think is called a compound, which is from the name of some Jamaican national who actually take allegiance with the Albion. And so where they are right now is actually where Jamaica is supposed to be. I think it's 15 square miles, as we same as
That's right.
here with DC. So the entire island is what they need to regain, repossess as theirs, and not just a territory which was granted to the colonial. So they have to come to the awareness. Yes, I support the act they're doing, but that's a fundamental awareness that the chief and his affiliated official need to come to the full awareness of, and not to put themselves in a demarcation region as that part being sovereign to them only, but actually the whole island. I yield.
And Islam, great
Islam.
point.
Yeah, I'm sure he's fully aware of that as well. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say what the brother was, what the good brother was just talking about is a compound going through their varying stages of advancement. Trust and believe. I've listened to the good brother Chief Curry speak. The brother is sharp. There's no way he doesn't recognize what you just said. But you got to do things slowly but surely as you go through your various stages of advancement. I'm pretty sure that he's making a push to take back the entire island. Is my point.
Islam reclaim eventually, but not now. It's chestnut.
Exactly. Excellent point of interest, good brother Hakeem. And with that said, I'll do it again. I've reached out several months ago. I'll try to reach out again to a compound so that we can recognize a compound, and potentially a compound recognize us, so that we can form an alliance. This is the power play that we need to partake in as we continue establishing our several Moroccan state governments, because a compound is a Moroccan state government, whether he knows it or not. But I know he knows it if he's wearing a fez and he's in cooperation with Moors. You know what I mean? Jamaica is Morocco, is part of Morocco. It's part and parcel to Morocco. Islam. So thanks for that interest, good brother. That was an excellent point of interest. So welcoming so again, I'll read it again. Welcoming the emergence in recent years. So now you can read, so this was in 1960. So let's fast forward to 2023 as if it was just written, right? Welcoming the emergence in recent years of a large number of dependent territories. AMPAG, a compound, New Mecca, AMPAG, Maru, DMT, Unami Buffalo Nation, Ante, Michigan. I hope I didn't forget someone. If I did, I apologize. Right? That's what we're looking at right now. Welcoming the emergence, and they're welcoming it. What else do we want, Moors? It's being welcomed. We're being welcomed back into the international community to take our seat in the affairs of man. We're being welcomed because we are the only one who can uplift fallen humanity. We are the ones with all the power. We are the Excalibur. We are the law. Don't we say Islam, I, self, law, am master? We are the beacons of light for all of humanity, period. Welcoming the emergence, and that's why they're welcoming it. Welcoming the emergence in recent years of a large number of dependent territories into freedom and independence, and recognizing the increasingly powerful trends towards freedom in such territories which have not yet attained independence. Any distinction, oh, I got to go to the left. You got to read this. This document is written kind of weird. Okay. Convinced that all peoples have an inalienable right to complete freedom, the exercise of their sovereignty, and the integrity of their national territory. Doesn't that sound like the triple principles? Sovereignty and independence, integrity of domain, economic liberty without any inequality. Convinced that all peoples have an inalienable right to convinced that all Moors have an inalienable right to complete freedom, the exercise of their sovereignty, and the integrity of their national territory, period. Solemnly proclaims the necessity of bringing to a speedy and unconditional end to colonialism in all its forms and manifestation. And to this end declares that the subjugation of Moors, it says here peoples, but let's say Moors, the subjugation of Moors to alien subjugation. I'm sorry, I pronounced this wrong. The subjection of Moors to alien subjugation, domination, and exploitation constitutes a denial of fundamental human rights and contrary to the Charter of the United Nations, and is an impediment to the promotion of world peace and cooperation. Let's go back to 1959 real quick. That was another reference point from the timeline that I wanted to point out, that I forgot to point out. Let's go back to Article 15 of the Treaty of Madrid. The footnote. So in 1959, so that's 1 year right before Resolution 1514 was enacted, which was in 1960. The year prior to the resolution, the King of Morocco and the United States made an attempt to remove the nationality clause of Article 15 of the Treaty of Madrid from the text, from the treaty. Oh, they didn't concern themselves with Article 11. Why? Because Article 11 is giving them the right to erect buildings and hold property in Morocco. But you want to remove Article 15, huh? That deals with the Moors having the ability and the right, the human right, just cogence, to their nationality. Article 6 of the rights of indigenous people. All indigenous people have a right to a nationality. So the question that I posed on the last call was why was it that the king was unable, or him removing it in the United States, removing Article 15 from the text? Why did it not hold any judicial standing? Why was it void ab initio? Well, the discussion that we had in that call was because he was the king, not the Sultan. He reduced himself. Only the Sultan would have been able to strike it from the record. Well, that's not the only reason why, though. What's the other reason? Go back to the read. Can I highlight this? I surely can't. Human rights. It's a violation of human rights to keep a people from their nationality. That's the other reason. It's a violation of just cogence, from which there can be no derogation. You cannot violate human rights according to international law, period. So those are two reasons. One, he demoted himself to being a king versus being a sultan. Two, it's a violation of human rights. You see?
Excuse me, brother. Also, wasn't it unlawful for him to do it without the consent of the other parties?
If he was the Sultan, then he wouldn't have needed the consent. The Sultan has that much power. He wouldn't have needed the consent, and everybody else would have been happy with it. So no, not necessarily, because the Sultan could have just struck it from the record without anyone else's approval.
I mean, the other parties to the treaty, though.
I know that's what you meant. I know that's what you meant. Yeah, the other treaty, he don't need their approval for anything. They don't run nothing. The Sultan say what it is and what it's not. Period, and you just go with it. But the Sultan is no longer. So who is the successors? Our Moroccan state governments, and that same authority and that same power that I'm describing as the office held, we now hold. As long as we're upholding human rights and their treaty rights, we don't need permission from anyone to enact our Moroccan laws. In the case between France and the United States, they spoke on that as it relates to right of assent. And the judges determined that there is no need for a right of assent. The Moroccan laws apply to you as long as consular court is being exercised, and in that way only. Page 202 of the France versus United States case. So in contrary to the Charter of the United Nations, and is an impediment to the promotion of world peace and cooperation. Number 2, or Article 2, all Moors, all peoples, all Moors have the right to self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. Period. The United States signed this. The United States is obligated to this. Who is our opponent? The United States. Article 3, inadequacy of political, economic, social, or educational preparedness should never serve as a pretext for delaying independence. I'll read it again. Inadequacy of political, economic, social, or educational preparedness should never serve as a pretext for delaying independence. They cannot delay our independence. No restrictions. Period. 4, all armed action or repressive measures of all kinds directed against dependent peoples shall cease. I'm gonna let that marinate for a quick second before I move on. All armed action or repressive measures of all kinds directed against dependent peoples shall cease, in order to enable them to exercise peacefully and freely their right to complete independence and the integrity of their national territory shall be respected. I didn't write this. J. Germain Bey didn't write this. This was enacted by France in 1960 through the United Nations Charter. International law, well-settled principles, res judicata. Other states in Africa have utilized this document to gain their independence. Res judicata.
Question, brother. Is that in effect now? I know it's in effect now, but why doesn't the United States teach their police officers these laws and these guidelines? Because I mean, it's buck wild about it.
Because it's not their responsibility. It is our responsibility. You see, we keep looking for the United States to do things for us.
I get it.
And it's not in their interest to do it.
It's not in their interest to do it. It is our responsibility. And once we come with a proper claim through our 3 branches of government, they must and they shall acquiesce. So now what you're saying is legislation. So we have to write legislation in regards to the matter, and the United States must write legislation in harmony with our legislation that deals with that matter. Do you see how that works?
Yeah, I get it. I see.
Islam. 5, immediate steps shall be taken in trust. Notice that, by the way, notice that trust is spelled in capital T, not lowercase t, but capital T. Which means you're not talking about like just a generic word trust, like, oh, I trust you. No. We're talking about a trust, an agreement. Immediate steps shall be taken in trust and non-self-governing territories. Non-self-governing territories are also in upper caps. Or all other territories which have not yet attained independence, to transfer all powers to the Moors of those territories. Why are we still sitting here as Negroes, Blacks, and Coloreds and stateless and dealing with police brutality and all these things, when Article 5 states immediate steps shall be taken? Not at your leisure, not whenever you decide, not whenever you want, immediately. Immediate steps shall be taken in trust and self-governing territories, i.e., Rhode Island, New York, California, New Mexico, Georgia, Alabama, Virginia, trust and non-self-governing territories. This is why uti possidetis jurisdiction is an important principle, because you're outlining in your constitution the longitude and latitude of the trust territory that you are now reclaiming to now establish as a self-governing territory. You see? Immediate steps.
Question.
Yeah.
How does the Pope's letter of July 2014 play into that?
It has absolutely zero judicial standing.
Okay, good.
Why is that? Well, go back and watch the video from last week in which I've showed and proved that the Pope himself is under the jurisdiction and the authority of Moroccan laws. So the Pope has no power, not over us. He got power over the Christian states, the Christian nations.
Well, that's what I was speaking to. He directed them to return all the land back over to America.
They did, yes, in the motu proprio, no doubt. If that's indeed or in fact a true document, because remember that came out in 2014 or something. It's 2023. Why
That's
ain't
correct.
nothing?
Yeah, that's correct. It did come out 2014.
He had all that power and he all this and all that. Then why are we still in the same situation?
And these individuals are supposed to be under his jurisdiction, aren't they?
So why are we still in the same situation?
Yes.
You see,
They just radical.
If I may,
go ahead.
May input my observation in the matter. I would say take it back a bit to 1492, Al-Andalus, when the British and the Moor were at war, and then they came here on this territory and then set up shops through the colonies and various different histories that we will not go in detail about. If we look at history and timeline, that battle is still going on. These Albion will not relinquish their theft. A good brother of mine actually used an analogy. For those who are acquainted with the movie Friday, Debo, when the guy says to him, listen, you got my bike for how long and so forth. When are you going to give it back? And Debo says, what are you going to do about it? So respectfully, no matter, even though in my assessment, the Pope is the grantor, the settler of the corporation, because all the taxes was going to the Vatican and the Queen. Mm-hmm. Now the chess game, the Queen is dead, and she's the strongest piece on the board. For those who know chess, right? The Pope now, was it October? The last date of October, he said, "Okay, you know what? You all being double dipping in the account, so I'm closing shop. So now I'm collecting all my revenue and so forth. So pretty much he's washed his hand. But these occupiers, these mercenaries, these criminals are still operating under the shadow pretense because of the demise of the people, the masses, because the masses still keep classifying them as government, someone to govern my mind. And so they're going to still operate in that pretense. This is why what, in respect to what Brother Abdul is saying, is those who are in the listening of his ear and seeing these various documents have to intellectually combine them together and act upon them in a divine and intellectual manner, which is what we're seeing here, statehood. Okay, and then so when we show the resurrection of consciousness, divine consciousness, we step into our fifth dimensional element and ascending further on, then we will show to the nation of the world that, hey, we are awakened and know we can handle our own affairs. So the document is addressing his people. He has no authority over the land itself. And even in the document of 2018, the rights of the American rights of the indigenous people, even in codification too, in that document, you see where they're telling the people, hey, listen, this is your land. I, the Pope, have like literally relinquish it. You guys need to get together and take your position. I heal.
That's right.
I understand that.
Islam. Excellent point of interest, good brother. We have to make those moves, right? Because it's 2018. It was in 2018. Actually 2014, something like that.
It was 2014, July 2014.
Right. 2018 was the last document, which was the American rights of the indigenous people, which is in harmony with what we're looking at here now: self-government, resources, territory, etc., etc.
It's fascinating that you're speaking on that, because it's actually a conversion from the rights of the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples. So the United States and the American states converted it to American rights of indigenous peoples. Same as we have done with our legislation, we have converted the rights of indigenous peoples to our Moroccan laws. I can't remember what we called it. Let's say Moroccan rights of indigenous peoples, for example, or the rights of Moroccan peoples. I can't remember what we named it. I'm yet to sign it. The Lil Aziz is deliberating over it and correcting a few things with it, so that then I can sign it into law and it becomes our legislation. So that was a conversion. That tells me that you're studying international law if you know about American rights of indigenous peoples. Islam, good brother. So as I was saying, so immediate steps shall be taken in trust in non-self-governing territories or all other territories which have not yet attained independence, to transfer all powers. Ain't that what the Black Panthers used to say back in the days? All powers to the people. Islam. To transfer all powers to the peoples of those territories without any conditions or reservations, in accordance with their freely expressed will. Okay. All right. Question for the floor. When it says in accordance with their free expressed will, the key word here is will. Take a stab at it, somebody. What do you think they mean by that?
Act of consent. Will is synonymous to consent.
Islam, this brother Yusuf, the will is referring to a constitution.
Thank you. Islam, somebody's been studying, in accordance with their free express constitution. It's the will. The will of who? The people. And the desire of the people. Excellent answer, good brother. In accordance with their freely expressed will and desire, without, go up, any distinction, slide over, without any distinction as to race, creed, or color. You see how I spelled color? That's a French word. That's a French way to spell color. You see a lot of French words in these documents because France has had heavy influence in the enactment of these resolutions, conventions, etc. In order to enable them to enjoy complete independence and freedom, period. Number 6, Article 6. Any attempt aimed at the partial or total disruption of the national unity and the territorial integrity of a country is incompatible with the purposes and principles of the Charter of the United Nations. Well, I thought the United Nations was the devil. The only reason why the United Nations may come off as the devil or belligerent is because of the 5 permanent Security Council members, which is headed by who? The United States, with their veto power, which allows them to act in a belligerent way, because any actions against them, they could just veto it. This is why we got to institute reforms. One of the reforms is getting rid of what? The veto power. And also unseating the United States International Organization and replace them with who? The United States of Morocco. Because that's why they are the superpowers of planet Earth, is because they are in our seat. In the absence of who? The Moroccans and their governments. Article 7.
That's why the Pope was under our seal.
Say it again.
That's why the Pope was sitting under the crest.
Exactly. You're talking about with the fencing Moor, with the Moor on the top left, the head of the Moor with the crown and the bear on the right. That Moor is called the fencing Moor, which is a German Moor. But you're absolutely right. He's under the authority of the Moors. That's why he sits under that crest. Great observation, Sister Islam. Notice also that Resolution 1514 only it has 7 articles. 7. Circle 7. The Act of Algeciras has 7 articles or 7 chapters. 6 are the provisions dealing with the reclamation of the estate, and the 7th chapter deals with the provisions or the instructions as to how to enforce said treaty or convention. So Article 7, all states, uppercase states, all states shall observe faithfully and strictly the provisions of the Charter of the United Nations, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, and the present declaration on the basis of equality, non-interference in the internal affairs of all states, and respect for the sovereign rights of all the Moors on planet Earth, and their territorial integrity of domain. That's the end of the reading for Resolution 1514. It's short and sweet.
I have a question though. No, go back up a little bit.
Okay.
A little bit. Okay, right there. I was wondering, why do they use the word race, creed, or color? And I'm thinking, especially color, and is it because they're talking about a subjugated people?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Excellent observation and question. Because you're talking about non-self-governing peoples who have been branded as Negroes, Blacks, and colors, i.e. they're talking about who? Moors. What would J. Jermaine Bay say? What type of Moors? Moroccan Moors. International organization.
So is it true that the UN is a Rockefeller creature?
Did you just read? Did you just see what I just read about the United Nations? The Rockefellers are supposed to be the devil, ain't it? Well, the spirit of the United Nations is in the spirit of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. No, the Charter and the United Nations is in the spirit of Moroccan laws.
Okay, because that's where the negative connotation always came from me.
That's correct. Rockefellers and the Rothschilds and all of them, they established the United Nations. Misinformation to keep you away from the United Nations and the Charter, because the United Nations and the Charter is Moroccan law. It's a spinoff or an addendum to all your earlier treaties. The Treaty of Tripoli, the Treaty of Peace and Friendship, the Treaty of Madrid, the Act of Algeciras, the Treaty of Fez. That's why you hear similar language. So no, sir, Bob. In no way, shape, form, or fashion. In fact, the Rockefellers are under the jurisdiction and the authority, and they're obligated to the United Nations. As well as the Rothschilds, who are the ones who we're talking about, Jacob, right? The Jews, the fake Jews, who had taken control of the United States municipal corporation through the 1871 Act of Congress. That's who enacted this. It was the Jews. That's who that all the taxes is going to the Federal Reserve, and then they perhaps are splitting it with the with the Queen of England or the King of England now, so called, because they're taking a seat. There's a more behind them all. You'll see that in John Wick 3, right? But every from the United States of America on down, United States of America, United States Municipal Corporation, and all the several chartered colony dependency states are all under the jurisdiction of Morocco.
Mhm.
We own all those
Because they're
corporations.
in Morocco's house.
Exactly. We own those assets. Those are these are our assets, Morris. This is why Prophet Noble Ali said, children, you're plainly rich. You own all the banks, the International Bank of Settlements, the IMF, International Monetary, what is it called? International Monetary Fund or whatever. The IMF, the Federal Reserve, Bank of America, Wachovia, I don't care, you name it. Down to the most smallest, most jankiest credit union. Every corporation that's been registered through the Secretary of State of each one of these trust territories belong to us. Amazon belongs to us. Facebook belongs to us. All of it. The Army, the Air Force, the Marines, the Navy, the Falcons, the Lakers, Hollywood, Tyler Perry Studios, all that belongs to us, Morris. All of it. We just have to make a proper claim, a competent claim, in order to take back control of our vast estate, which is considered, all those corporations and all those assets is considered in the Act of Algeciras is known as the Great Enterprise. It's all about commerce, amity and commerce. And we are the dominant parties in each one of those contracts. In the United States of America, and the several states are the subordinate parties of these contracts. And by the way, the fact that they let me finish this point. And the simple fact that they owe us so much, they cannot repay those loans. Which means then that all of their assets becomes what? What does it become? If I don't pay my car note, what happens? If I don't pay my house,
Repossessed, liquidated.
Thank you. Thank you. They're facing foreclosure. Go ahead, brother. What were you asking?
So how does us operating in this status correlate in our interactions with the IRS?
We own the IRS as well. So how do we own that? What do we do with the IRS? Okay. So the IRS already, they have established a system and mastered the system of collecting taxes, right? Okay. Well, since we're taking back Morocco, which means we're taking control of the United States and all of its entities, that means now that we govern and control the IRS to collect taxes from their own foreign nationals or foreign citizens or American citizens on our behalf. You see how that works? So no longer will they be collecting taxes on behalf of the Jews or behalf of the Queen and behalf of the Pope. They're doing it now on our behalf because we have taken back control of our empire.
I follow you, but my question is more practical, like in today's interactions. Like, because, okay, I've been doing processes and things as far as recoupment processes and dealing with the IRS and the state itself. But now coming on to the government and, getting in my proper status, how does it correlate to the personal estates and the IRS dealings?
Islam, are you asking essentially how do you get tax exemption?
Tax exemption, somewhat, but I'm talking about recoupment for the estate. Recouping the estate.
To my personal.
Define recruitment.
Well, recoupment is recouping all the interest and residuals and things that's attached to the social and credits, I should say, that's been accumulating in the social with the social
Okay.
And the
That
birth certificate.
aim, so to speak.
that is back to it. You're referring to. You're referring to. But I wanted to ask you a question because you said something that I need to correct. I think that goes back to chapter 2, a regulation concerning the detection. No, I'm sorry. 4, a declaration concerning a better return of taxes and the creation of new revenues. That's how we recoup it all. They're in rares. Is that the word? In rares, at least back to 1906. So how did we recoup it?
Arrears. The word is arrears.
There you go. There you go. I always mess that word up. How do we recoup it? Take back control of the empire through your 3 branches of government. And then you take control of the IRS. And that's how you recoup everything. Now, what you're also referring to, I believe, is the accessing the global trust that's attached to your Social Security. All this deals with taking back control of the empire, good brother. We have to take back control of the empire before we can make any competent claim as it relates to our taxation that's owed to us. But you mentioned that you had made that you had established. What did you say? Something about being in your proper person. You went through the process of establishing yourself in your proper person. What did that process look like, good brother? Very important question.
Expressing the trust, I think.
No, I'm talking. No, I'm asking the good brother that just asked the question about recouping our taxes.
Yeah, can you repeat your question?
My question was, you mentioned that you had went through a process to establish the proper person, establish yourself in your proper person. I'm asking you, what did that process look like? What did you do?
Well, in regards to the IRS, I'm speaking specifically on establishing the trust and the Form 56s and just getting in the correct status to be able to recoup those credits that's been lingering through 1099s and things of that nature.
Islam. Okay. You're still a Moorish subject. You never corrected anything, good brother. If you did not.
Oh no, I'm aware of that, and I mean in that status. That's why I'm asking, like, how does this affect that? Like, I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like,
no, I know what you're saying, but I just want to make them so you do understand, and this is a learning moment, teaching moment for everyone on the line and anyone who may be watching from home after this video has been uploaded. We have to clearly. Let's speak with reference points. Shoot, I done lost. What was the page? 459, I think. Yeah, 459. Let's go back to the expatriation document so I can show and prove to Moors what it is that's going on and what it is that we need to do. Okay, so Hoffman Phillip told Secretary of State Elihu Root in 1906 from the American legation in Tangiers that citizenship in Morocco may be said to be governed by the laws pertaining to the same in other countries, with the exception that all persons residing in Morocco who cannot prove foreign citizenship or protections are considered ipso jure as Moorish subjects. You have to prove your allegiance to another state in order to correct your national status on the record. Period. Point blank. In that way, and in that way only, there is no other process. Moors need to understand this. Moors need to understand this. Moors need to overstand this. There is no process on planet Earth that's correcting our status outside of establishing a state government or taking your allegiance to a Moroccan state government. That's it. There's no way around it. That's it. Period. End of discussion. There's nothing else to talk about. What you're referring to is the old Tariq Bey, old paradigm BS and Yusuf El and all these people with this UCC stuff and all these other processes that has absolutely nothing to do with the establishment of your government, in which your government issues to you your state ID and your certificate, your allodium certificate of live birth. If it's not undergoing those processes, then you didn't do nothing. You're still a Moorish subject. Moors have to understand this. That's the reason why I asked you what I asked you, to verify what it is that you thought was the correct way. And I had to clarify it for you, because in doing so, I'm clarifying it for everyone else who's listening. Because that's one major misconcept that we have to unlearn. There is nobody else on planet Earth that gained their nationality. Go ahead, bro.
I think the question is getting mixed up, because first of all, what you're saying is understood. That's the purpose we're here today. I agree with you 100%. I'm saying by the status being corrected now, not talking about the tie or whatever you're in reference to, how we've been doing things in the past. I'm saying by it being corrected now, how does it affect? That was the question. I'm not saying that it hasn't been answered, but that was the question. I'm not saying that I was thinking that the IRS or that process was somehow correcting the status.
No. I understood your position after you clarified it. However, what I'm doing is making a point for those who don't understand what you said, for anyone else who might be listening, for anyone else who might be thinking that they undertook the proper process. So I'm just using your statement as a teaching and learning moment for everyone else who may not be clear on those matters. If you understand what I'm saying, I'm not saying that you are standing your square on that specific process. I know that you know that it's not the correct process. That's why we're on the call. I'm just saying I'm giving everyone else an understanding that may not have that understanding. You understand what I'm saying now, good brother?
Yeah, I follow you.
Yeah, it's for everyone else. It's not for you. It's for everyone else who may think. Because I just had a conversation with a good brother right before this call, and he was under the impression that what he did in the past corrected his status. And a lot of Moors think that. And it's very incorrect. We gotta unlearn everything that we have learned in the old paradigm. That's why the old Moors need to sit their butts in the back somewhere, because they have took us down the wrong path. The proper way of doing things is through your state government. There's no other national on planet Earth that gained their national identity and their emanating documents, i.e. the state ID, birth certificate, etc., through a temple, through a church, through a mosque, through a website like RB Bay Publication, or any form of organizations or association. It only comes through your state government. And that's just the bottom line. Islam. So we're done with the reading. We're actually done with the class. I'll open up the floor for further questions and discussion for the next 30 minutes. Islam, I yield the floor.
Islam, brother. In relation to what New Head Ray just said, if I may add to my comprehension what was being stated, this 1099 and IRS method, hopefully I'm not in error to what the brother was saying, but a lot of people have been approaching that approach with intent to obtain fiat independently. And
right,
the mindset of our people right now at this point in time is to erase the concept of what they call reparation and start thinking of restoration, because you could get a billion fiat today, and most of us will burn it up within maybe a year time. Okay, the one thing that is perpetual is our estate. The fiat is limited, irrespective of how much you might think it is in numeration. Okay, once you have estate, the earth, from which you can get your resources to live and not just only exist, and that estate can be passed down through trust to generation, securing the comfort, ability of generation to come, whereas you don't have to be thinking of laboring or slaving, should I say, to be able to have a roof over your head. That should be the mindset of our people, okay? And therefore, erase the concept of you know, yes, we know we are being exploited, but erase the concept of IRS utilizing us and the social security and how we can get back all that fiat and all that credit, because the whole paradigm will be changed. We're going back to our ancient principle. So these were principles that was crafted to keep us under subjugation. So the divine mentality that is fundamental for us to progress in the different dimension and realm of our existence here. So when we transcend, we can transcend into other realm instead of reincarnated, is where our mentality should be central on. I heal.
Agree, brother, agree. But just to get complete clarity on the question. So you saying that we don't have no dealings with the IRS except as a government, except through our government. That's what you're saying.
Yes. I think that's what he's saying, and that's exactly what it is.
At this point, absolutely. Our focus should be on our kindred, our government, and securing our allegiance there, which in return will secure our estates and comfort and prosperity.
You go, there you go, there you go, good brother. There you go. Excellent, excellent. To add to that, that's the reason why Black people don't get reparations. Because Black people don't have a state. Black people are a bunch of individuals that are subjugated under the United States. So what you're proposing then is to, let's say, divide whatever is owed up, whatever is owed, divide it up and disperse it to each individual. Oh, Lord, have mercy. That is political suicide. The reparations, if there's ever a claim for reparations, it goes to the state. You see, and the state, the competent state, manages the finance or those monies that was paid back due to whatever let's say due to whatever conflict that they endured against with the conflicting state or the attacking state, or the what's the word I'm looking for. So one is a victor and the other one is the victim. So the victim, the state, the victim would be the state, not the peoples, right? And so it's the state who would receive the reparations, not the peoples. That's the reason why Black people can't get reparations, and they are owed reparations. However, what's really what's the word I'm looking for? What's the restoration is the correct approach, not reparations. Though they also owe us reparations. But here's the thing. Through our restoration, we receive the reparations, you see?
Absolutely.
Through the restoration, we receive the reparations. Not the other way around. Okay.
All right. So in support to what you just said, if operatively, the reparation should be given to the administrative body or the sovereign body officiating over the territory, and that reparation now will be used for infrastructure for the continuous establishment, for example, an academic institution or healthcare institution or whatever facility. So that reparation should go to the sovereign treasury for that territory to utilize for the proper establishment and development of that territory, community, etc., etc.
Exactly. Agreed. I ain't got nothing else to say. In fact, you teach the class. Excellent, brother. Go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Based on what the brother prior to speak about the 1099, we don't need to float the 1099 or float no IRS form. I'm gonna tell you what, because Noble Drew Ali already created 1099 for us. Before they have a 1099, we have a 1099, but we not recognizing it. So if you don't get credence to your stuff, why go give credence to somebody else's stuff when you have one which is more ancient than what they have, which is more proper, and it's based on the land. It's called a vast estate trust. It's a 1099. That's what they use. That's what they copy off and create their 1099. Because 1099 come after 1933, the bankruptcy. Your 1099 been around from Joe Ali. And they copy up and create their 1099. That's when they start to use 1099 after Noble Joe Ali created it. So you got to go back and look on the record and you see your 1099, where you should be activating. So your one, when you really think about your own, it is actually a 805. It's very big, and it can remove the fiat off of the land anytime you're willing to. That's how powerful your one is. But you're not looking for that. Most people are looking for the fiat, like you said. Our state set up, all of that stuff is gonna have to shift over to our state.
Absolutely, null and void.
Fall under the protection
Right.
of. But just to clarify, it sounds like your question is the estate that you've already recouped, your personal estate for your own self or your family. How would that be handled on the state level with the Moorish state, correct?
Absolutely. With the knowledge constantly growing, I'm just, I want to know. I mean, I can't do nothing but ask the questions.
No, that's an excellent question, and we appreciate the question. But what he's saying is that everything through our states, anything else other than that is based on individual, and there's no judicial standing when an individual who is a Moorish subject is trying to make those claims. They can shut you down easily at any moment.
At any moment, they could shut you down.
Right.
Charge you for all kind of fraudulent this, fraudulent that.
Exactly. State, because you need to establish your separate jurisdiction so that now you can reject their jurisdiction. You can't reject their jurisdiction if you don't have another jurisdiction that you fall under. And that's part of the trick bag. That's why after 100 years, that 1099 and the Prophet's trust and all this stuff has never worked, because we're operating under the mindset and the belief, recognizing that the word belief has lie in it, the belief that the temple itself is a government, and it's not. It's an organization. It's no different than the NAACP. It's an organization. There's no judicial, like the authority that the grand sheiks and the grand governors have within the temple is limited to within the temple. It's limited to their members. They're called members. They're not called nationals or citizens according to the Constitution and bylaws. They're members, which means it's an organization. Act 5, right here.
It wasn't
I don't care what's codified in their system. We shouldn't care anything dealing with their system. The only thing that we should be concerned about is taking back control of their system, of our system, and enact legislation, introduce reforms, right, to correct the wrongs and the corruption within that system. That's the bottom line. So they can have us codified as they may please in the CDCs. They can have us codified as they may please in the UCCs. However, your Moroccan law and treaties are the supreme law of the land. In order for us to take back our trust, can we agree that in order to do so, we need to establish our states and do it through those measures?
Absolutely.
Yes, I agree with that 100%. Okay. That's why I said we got to use that trust under our state.
Okay, speak on this matter for a few seconds.
Go ahead, brother.
Okay, so to answer the initial question that was asked that led down to this path, as to how we would go about handling our estates on the state level, each Moorish state government should have their own state trust established, right? Their nationals would either, depending on the state's constitution, would either register their either trust or whatever within the state trust, similarly to how it's being done in the corporate jurisdiction, in order to gain protection that way. Or if the Constitution set up for any national to just automatically have their estates protected, that's how that would be handled. Now, regarding the whole class action thing, that's exactly what the Wazir as well as AMPAG's Kazi has been talking about when they reference taking the United States to the ICJ. You know what I mean? That is the
Islam.
so-called class action lawsuit. You know, but it has to be done on a state-to-state level. It can't
Islam.
be individual Moors, you know, coming together without a government and then file another class action lawsuit. That won't go anywhere. You know,
Exactly.
they'll shut that down immediately.
Exactly.
So
You
the point is, just like the Wazir said, the first order of business is for Moors in their individual state territories or trust territories to establish state governments, right? And then organize in such a way where they'll be able to do what's necessary to handle the affairs of their nationals, you know, because it is a lot to state government than just seal, flag, you know what I mean? Constitution.
Exactly.
There's a lot more to it. And when it gets down to the real work, that's when we're going to need competent Moors to come in with their expertise, knowledge, whatever, to help better organize each government. You know,
That's correct. That's correct.
So,
That's
long.
thank you. I appreciate the wisdom in your point of interest, good brother. Excellent. And that's exactly what we're saying. We're on the same page. We're on the same page while at the same time on the wrong page. Because when you mention a class action lawsuit as it relates, and I'm not sure if that's what you were meaning, but that's how it came off, as it relates to individuals coming together to take the United States to court, that's the wrong answer. The right answer is to take them to the ICJ through your states, because only they only accept state-to-state disputes. An individual or a bunch of individual Moors who do not have a state government will get rejected quickly. They won't even make it through the door. Right. And there's other processes involved, such as like the Pacific settlement, which Jay Bay is going over at this moment in videos 84 and 85, study sessions 84 and 85, as it relates to the exact processes necessary to settle contentious disputes between states. And there's several boxes that need to be checked just in that section to get to the ICJ, to be accepted by the ICJ, to accept the compulsory jurisdiction of the ICJ. You see, so it's more than just a flag, a seal, and a constitution. Integrity of domain deals with all your laws, your legislation. It deals with the enforcement of your legislation. It deals with the establishment of your national trust. It deals with the establishment of your nationality paperwork, your state ID, your certificate of live birth, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And only then can we then move on to the next phase, which is economic liberty without any inequality, which deals with the recoupment of all your taxes, all your finances that's being owed, to include establishing a trust that the prophet set up. So the first step, the first order of business is to establish our state governments under international law and under our Moroccan treaties for our further protection and full powers that is found in good and due form. This is language that's coming off these treaties. Islam, I yield the floor if anyone has anything else.
I agree. Go ahead.
I was going to also say, along with the second order being the recoupment, is also the economic establishment of the independence, really financially, and through the movement of what people would say commerce collectively. Because you can't say that you are independent or a nation state if you're not producing independently where it could be identified internationally, where people really genuinely will get into the bed of business, where now your connection is really international and not just, per se on paper.
Islam.
I yield the floor.
Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I agree 100% with what you said, because it's only through your state, and then when you set up your central government, that we're going to reap our benefit, because we've been out of this thing for a while. So the individual is not going to get any way too far, because They always want to reject you in the first place. That's the first thing, you know. So you have to do it through your state. And that's why I said the 1099, you have to set it up through each individual state. So it could be beneficial to the people. It's not an individual thing. It's not. It's really not.
Well, hold on, Kirk. Let me clarify something real quick right there. No, it's not. Hold on a second, brother. It's not going to be necessarily so much so based on the trust being set up by each of our independent states. No, the correct answer would be for it to be established through the United States of Morocco once all of our interdependent states come together and enact the Constitution for the central government. That's the checkmate. Islam. Go ahead, brother.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, brother.
But the bills and the credits that you have now that's existing today are individual. So it's still in reference to
Yeah,
how
but
does it change these things?
Well, the individual set up these things through the state, though.
Well, I think what he's saying is that each individual is dealing with the pain point from the IRS, right? But that's only because each individual is in a subjugated status as a Moorish subject. So these Moors that are in the status of a Moorish subject must choose between the entire submission of the laws of the empire or to the laws of the empire and establish their states to properly and competently combat that issue. It's like for like. You got 8 pawns, I got 8 pawns. You got 2 rooks, I got 2 rooks. You got 2 bishops, I got 2 bishops. You got 2 knights, I got 2 knights. You got a queen, I got a queen. You got a king, I got a king. What is the equivalent? What's the equivalence to that? You got a constitution, I got a constitution. You got a state flag, I got a state flag. You got a state seal, I got a state seal. Now we can play chess.
Absolutely.
Until then, like the good brother Jay Bay did in, I don't know, video 40 something, he knocked all the pieces off the board. If you were to go back and watch one of those, I believe it was study session 40 something, 45, right? If you guys have been watching his videos, he keeps a chessboard on the table with the pieces on.
Yes, he do.
Well, he knocked all the white pieces off. Why? Because we are the white pieces. We start off, we make all the moves. We are the ones. We are the dominant power. He knocked all the white pieces off the board and left the black pieces on there. Why? Because we don't have no governments. We don't have no equality. What is the equality? You got a flag, I got a flag. You got a constitution, I got a constitution. You got a seal, I got a seal. Every one of their corporate states have a flag, seal, constitution, and they fall under the jurisdiction of the United States, which has a flag, seal, and constitution. We have to do the same thing. We have to mirror image them. That's why the prophet said he's going to leave them here long enough to teach us how to run government. The International Court of Justice deals with contentious disputes between states. The International Criminal Court deals with adjudication against heads of state in their private as well as what's the word I'm looking for? Let's just say their private capacity. So
official capacity.
Well, that
if I'm not mistaken, the Criminal Court of Justice says specifically that they don't handle criminal disputes or criminal disputes, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, they deal with contentious disputes, and a contentious dispute is a contentious dispute. So if we have a dispute with the United States that they have denationalized us, that's a criminal act. Anything that deals with the violation of human rights and the peace and security of the international community is a criminal act.
Okay, so my question is into as far as pursuit of law or pursuit, like by us filing the claim, what are we in pursuit of?
We are in pursuit of our vast estate. Period. We're trying to take everything back, and they have to relinquish. Let me continue real quick. So the ICJ. First of all, let me finish what I was trying to say. The International Criminal Court adjudicates their cases against the heads of state. They would remove they have the power to remove Joe Biden. They have the power to remove Putin. So one thing has to deal with the individual as the head of state. The International Court of Justice deals with contentious disputes between states. That's the difference between the two. However, what is it that we're seeking? We're seeking the restoration of our vast estate. So according to the France versus United States case, the United States, the International Court of Justice allowed the United States to operate based on a limited jurisdiction, limited criminal and civil jurisdiction. Until when? Until the day that the Moors come back and make a competent claim. Now they have to relinquish the entire jurisdiction, which means giving back the control and the operations and the governance of the Empire of Morocco. So to answer your question directly, what are we going to the ICJ for? To take back control of Morocco. Once we take back control of Morocco, we take back the control of the United States and all the problems that's dealing with the United States. We enact legislations, institute reforms to clean up the mess.
So with that being said, that means that we will be relying on two things. One, that the ICJ can make a decision or respectfully make a decision to restore our vast states. And two, that in that event, that means the United States is going to pack up and move.
No, they're not going to pay. It's not a matter of them packing up and move. It's a matter of them packing up and giving it up. They may remain. We're going back to the original contract, the master contract, which is the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. We're here in peace and friendship. It's a cohabitating agreement with us being the landlords and them being the tenants.
Can
So
I
it's not
interject quickly, Brother Abdul? In relation to letting them stay, now, I can't quote verbatimly the article in the American Rights of Indigenous People, but it did make mention to the fact that those who are found in criminal negligence should be deported to Guam or Puerto Rico or any of these other United States territory. So because I see it as detriment and hindrance to have them remain on the land, for they will continuously, based on their evil inclination, and it's extremely monetary, try to implement, create some form of disharmony amongst the people. So you want to get rid of the problem
let's clarify the point by clarifying the parties. We're talking about two different parties. The guilty parties, who are those who are in the higher offices, who are executing such criminality against us as the people. Then you also have the average everyday American citizen, right? So when you say pack up and move, or pack up and remove them, okay. If we're talking about the those in the higher offices who are guilty of the criminal acts, of course. But that doesn't mean that's not the case for all the American citizens, though.
No, absolutely not. I'm right. I'm agree with you.
Okay, that's the point. I just need to clear that up. So yes, so if those who have been found guilty, yeah, I just said that earlier. Them and their Negro counterparts need to be adjudicated and put under the jail. But that's not the case for all the American citizens, because they're not all guilty. In fact, most of them aren't even, if 90% of them are unaware, and they also been miseducated.
Absolutely, including the mercenaries too. They're totally
Exactly. So we just got to clarify let me just clarify my position too.
But that would still be taking it back down to an individual level. Right now, the claim is still us. This claim still will individual level to who did what and who not yet.
Say it again, brother. Your phone was breaking up.
I said the claim with the I level. So
your phone is still breaking up. I don't know what's going on with your phone, brother.
Man, I don't either. Oh my
Please
goodness.
repeat. I want to understand what you're saying. Say that again. You mentioned something about it being on an individual level.
I said, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
At all?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
I said the claim with the ICJ is still on the state to state level.
That's right.
It's still dealing from state to state. So as far as breaking it down to who is guilty individually, you know what I'm saying?
Okay.
That's coming to play.
Okay. I hear where you're going. So the ICJ determines that the United States is guilty, right? Our consular court now Now, our consular court would adjudicate the individual parties that are guilty.
And
Specifically.
that's when we gonna need an army.
No, we don't need an army. We already got an army. The Army, the Air Force, the United, the Navy, and the Marines, the Coast Guard. That's our army, and the UN peacekeepers, as well as all the other military around planet Earth. Once we take back control of the Security Council and the United Nations Charter, so we already got a military.
Islam. So I would highly advise Morse to review some of the older videos because a lot of this was already addressed. But keep in mind that the goal is, once we already have our state back in Moorish hands, Asiatic hands, the goal is peaceful existence, coexistence with the Europeans here. Like the prophet said, some of them are going to have to take on water, but he's going to leave enough here because they're good farmers, XYZ.
Exactly.
Feel me? So it's not about us then coming in being belligerent saying, get off my land. That's the criminal way of going about it for us, that we were not going to be doing that. You know what I mean? Now, for those who are belligerent to us and violating the treaty, once we have that power back in Moorish hands, if they violate the treaty, then they're going to have to get dealt with through the court system and have their due process recognized as well. You know, it's not going to be a matter of get off my land. The violent criminals, of course, they're going to be treated just like violent criminals are treated anywhere on the planet. They get deported to wherever they come from. If they don't have a mother state willing to take them, then, you know, oh well, you know, you get put on a little island somewhere probably. I don't know how it's going to work. This is probably the next generation's issue. But the bottom line is we have to be mindful that we're not going to be coming in belligerent. You know, we have to get out of that mindset and simply focus on creating everything that we need to positively coexist with these people. They're not inherently evil. You know, that's another aspect that we need to fix in our minds. They're not inherently evil, just like we aren't inherently evil. Just regardless of how we're portrayed in the media, you know, they're humans just like us. They care about self-preservation just like us. It just so happens that they were miseducated, the vast majority of them, miseducated into fearing us.
Mm-hmm.
Amalgamation is important. We have to take into consideration. So the amalgamation do let them inherit certain level of genome, which also attributed to love, peace, truth, justice, and freedom.
Islam. But what the good brother what the good brother Hakeem Bey was saying, just beautifully stated. I couldn't have said it any better. That's my point. That's the point that I've been trying to make. You know, they're not inherently evil. If they're okay, so if the white man is evil, and the Moors taught them everything they know, oh, then who's the biggest damn devil? You see? How long, what was the time frame in which we were subjugating and oppressing them and enslaving them and having their women in our harems to the point now that everybody's mixed in the world? We fell, what's their names? Trinidad and Isabella, right, of Andalusia. They weren't white people per se. They were the offspring of the children that was born out of the Moorish harems. We felt our own children. All the atrocities that we put them through. You want to tell me that they're evil? When we taught them we taught them colonization. The whole empire is an empire because we colonized all those lands. We went around taking land from other lesser states. Everything, there's nothing that these people are doing or have ever done that they did not learn from us. So stop looking at them as the devil, because looking at them as the devil is looking at yourself as the bigger devil, because we taught them everything. Everything. We got to get out of that mindset. I have dealt with so-called white people, albions, whatever, in my own personal experiences, and I've had better experiences with them than my own people. There's no way I would wear a blue shirt in Inglewood, California, because the Bloods over there would take me out because of a color. Not because I robbed anyone, not because I infringed upon the rights of anyone, but because I'm wearing a color. You want to tell me about the devil? We are the damn devils. We got to fix ourselves. We got to look in the mirror and get our stuff together and stop looking at the white man. The white man, he's nothing more than a belligerent child that all we got to do is lay the rules out and enforce the rules upon them, and they will follow along as they should. It is our people. Right now, we're dealing with problems with rogue wazirs from other states who's constantly pumping out misinformation, who's constantly pumping out slander. There's a major slander attack going against J. Jermaine Bay right now that's being promoted by one of our own. So don't tell me about the white man. I'm tired of it. Islam, we got to start looking at ourselves. It's all about self-governance. No one is immune from Moroccan law. And that's what we got to understand. We got to hold our own accountable before we even hold them accountable. That's why earlier when the question was asked about dealing with the Black nobility and the converso Moors, my answer to that was adjudicate them first. Set the precedents by adjudicating our own first. And I bet you everybody else will fall in line. I yield the floor.
Islam. So that kind of brings up, for me at least, the issue of if Moors won't hold themselves accountable and each other accountable, how can we expect to hold the Europeans accountable? And I had to pose this question because a very influential Moor recently slandered me, falsely accusing me of slandering him, when all it was his significant other misread my article, or for whatever reason, she told him that I slandered him, and he believed it. He probably did not read the article, because if he did, I'm sure he's intelligent enough to know I did not slander him. I'm just reporting what other Moors have been alleging about him. You feel me? But now there's a situation where I'm being slandered. Act 3 is being violated, and he's not holding himself accountable, and other Moors around him are not holding him accountable. You feel me? And so for me at least, it's like, if we are not going to hold each other accountable, because I'm doing all that I can right now on my side, you feel me? If we can't hold each other accountable, how can we then try to say or try to hold the Europeans accountable by doing whatever, filing lawsuits or whatever? You know, we have to be able to take care of our own when it comes to these things. So when a Moor violates, when a VHS scholar gets on Instagram, starts slandering people, we have to be able to handle him in our court and give him his due process. You feel me? And handle him under Moroccan law. You know, then once we've established ourselves as being a competent body of people, a nation of people, then we can start to hold the Europeans accountable.
Mm-hmm.
You feel me?
That's exactly right.
If a Moor can stay on the other side of Northwest Mexico and completely slander an actual official of a Moorish state government, and he's not held accountable for that, then how's that going to look when we try to go to the Europeans and be like, we're trying to hold you accountable now?
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
So we got to look at ourselves first.
That's right.
Can they actually award us our vast estate, or do we have to make claim to it though? Like, what can the ICJ do as far as that goes?
You said, could the ICJ award us our estate?
We're not depending on them to award. We are presenting the fact of the atrocious act of centuries and centuries of abuse, and that we are ready to take what is ours. So we're not looking to go, oh, referee, can you decide between either and either? No. Just that we are actually executing what is classified as due process of law. So no one can be inexcusable of not knowing. But it's not a begging claim process, you know, if you might put it that way. No, it's claiming what is rightful. We are the heirs. So we're saying, hey, listen, we're ready. We're here. It's ours now. But these people, while they were in trustees, administrative, offices, this is what they have done. So, we want these people to be liable. It's like, put it this way, a Nuremberg 2 trial for the extremes.
Correct. And one of the judgment that we're seeking from the ICJ is for the president to sign, excuse me, Public Law 856, which has already been enacted back in August of 1956, or should I say, the bill was put together by Congress to relinquish extraterritorial jurisdiction when the president finds the time to be appropriate. So when the ICJ, when the judgment from the ICJ comes out, what we're looking for is for them to force Biden or whoever the current president might be at the time to sign Public Law 856 to relinquish extraterritorial jurisdiction. If they relinquish extraterritorial jurisdiction, that authority automatically confers to us. And then now, once we have that authority, now all of our Moroccan laws can stand without any prejudice. And so now at that point now we start enacting legislation and instituting reforms to clean up this mess. So we're not looking for anything other than for the United States to sign Public Law 856, relinquish extraterritorial jurisdiction, right? Based on criminal and civil jurisdiction over Morocco, because the criminal and civil jurisdiction of Morocco belongs to the Moors, not the United States. But in our acquiescence, the United States by default took over. So now that we're no longer acquiescing and we're back into our full powers and our proper status, they have to relinquish it, and it automatically all goes back to us. Simple as that. It's really not difficult. We're making it a little bit harder than it really needs to be. Taking back control of our empire means that we have the authority and the power now to clean up the mess that we don't like. So any problems that we all been discussing here tonight, any issues that we've ever had with the colonists, we need to regain control of our empire so that we then have the authority to clean it up. That's the point. Instituting reforms.
Right. So my only confusion, or not necessarily confusion, but I was looking at it, or I would still say, by us claiming our statehoods, declaring our statehoods, that are automatically put us in a de jure position to operate, right? So we would use the ICJ, I thought, to make the claims once they fail to perform.
Correct.
See what I'm saying? So it would still be individual claims instead of us trying to all just make a big claim and then start operating. You see what I'm saying?
Well, what do you mean? You keep going back to this individual thing. I don't understand why you keep bringing up individual. What do you mean by that? Say that.
Individual states.
No, I mean,
it's
like,
not individual.
what I'm saying is, once you claim your statehood and you assume your de jure position to operate, then you make your claims directly with them. And once they fail to uphold what they're supposed to perform according to the treaties, then you report to the ICJ on non-performance issues according to the treaties. That's the way I was looking at it.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm understanding you correctly, then yes, that's correct. But there's a due process of law that takes place, which first it goes through our consular court, and if our consular court don't prevail, then we petition the ICJ. But there's a slight chance that they would should I say capitulate to our Moroccan laws based on our judicial orders that get sent out to them. But in the case that they do not, then we would have to petition the International Court of Justice to adjudicate the case as another should I say?
That's what I meant by individual cases instead of just trying to sue them for our vast estate. You see what I'm saying?
Well, I mentioned that earlier. The approach is human rights violations and genocide. Oh, that's all it takes. All you need is one or two powerful. The reason why we're going after genocide is because it's morally condemnable in international law as it relates to the rights of indigenous peoples. That's in the preamble. So that's the lowest hanging fruit. So we're actually going after the lowest hanging fruit to make our case state against the United States.
Islam,
brother,
quick point of interest. Nothing, is my understanding, nothing is done individually anymore. If we have a grievance, we take it to our own state. We take it to our people and let our council of court and our sheriffs and our people, investigators, etc., deal with them folks. Our power comes through our government, period, from my understanding.
That's
that
absolutely
we don't have to do any individual work.
Hold on, brother. He's not referring to individuals as human beings. He's talking about individual cases. Am I correct, brother?
Correct. Individual state cases as opposed to the vast estate.
Okay, so let me clarify something else for you that I think might be your confusion. So our individual states. Okay, so so AMPAG, Allodium Mons Palladium Ante Colorado, is who is actually taking the United States to court, International Court of Justice. And each one of our individual states will join in the fight under what's called erga omnes parties through what's called a declaration of what's the name of this document? Declaration of intervention. So what happens is AMPAG is taking them to court, but AMPAG, New Mecca, DMT, Unami Buffalo Nation, and Ante Michigan, right? Am I missing someone? I might be missing somebody. I hope not. Maru, right? We're all joining the case under erga omnes parties as injured parties. So we will be part and parcel to the case. So therefore, what it means is that all of our states will be piling up against the United States, standing firm with AMPAG.
Class action.
A class act, you can say a class action state.
State class action.
Yeah, based on states, not class action based on a bunch of individuals, but a bunch of states coming together to go against the United States, take them to court. Does that clear up what
are we formulating as the United States of Morocco and then assuming our seat at the UN? Because the ICJ is only one arm of the UN.
Yes, it's one of the organs, but the ICJ is a judicial organ of the United Nations.
Right. So we need our seat at the United Nations. And
so
then
that's where
use the ICJ as one of our enforcement tools.
That's where the relinquishment of extraterritorial jurisdiction comes in.
But it's not a ruling though. It's not a ruling. It's something that we claim. We claiming it now. We on the right path, but we claiming it. They're not going to rule it or afford it to us.
Well, they're going to enforce it against the United States when we take them to the ICJ for them to relinquish. Okay, so let me say it another way. All of our states would be sending the United States judicial orders. For example, let's say each one of our states send them a judicial order to relinquish extraterritorial jurisdiction. They don't do so. They ignore the judicial orders, right? The next step then is to petition the International Court of Justice. The judgment out of the International Court of Justice, if it's favorable for us, if we don't lose based on certain principles that we cannot violate, once we get the judgment that we're looking for from the ICJ, then it's checkmate. Now we can take back control of the empire through what? Establishing the United States of Morocco. Do we want to do it prior? Yes. But in order, it's not going to work at this point because we don't have enough bodies. See, once you establish the United States of Morocco, you got to man those several different offices. You need the wazir, you need the Sayaraha, and you need the minister, the chief judge.
We need a restoration of the Rhoda and Saxton.
Well, we need the people to cover those positions.
Absolutely.
So we don't have those people to cover those
I
positions.
thought we needed 7 states.
Even if we had 10 states, see, each one of our states are limited with people. So we only
I understand that, but I'm talking about to be recognized at the seat as a seat at the UN.
That's you're not
get enforcement, and then we'll be
following me, brother. You're not following me. In order to take back the seat at the United Nations, it has to be done as the United States of Morocco. So we have to first enact the Constitution for the United States of Morocco and fill the positions that are void right now, which is the head of state or the executive branch, the judicial branch, the legislative branch, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Mufti, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Currently, at this point, with the amount of states that we have, we do not have enough manpower to cover those separate positions. So what we need to do is take them to the ICJ under erga omnes parties, because we can't do it as the United States of Morocco. If we could do it as the United States of Morocco, that would be even better. United States of Morocco versus the United States of America. But we don't have the manpower to cover those separate positions. So instead, the next best option, the next lowest hanging fruit is erga omnes parties, where all of our individual states come together and go and take the United States to the ICJ backing AMPAG. Once that has been, because see, what's going to happen is once that judgment comes out and it comes out in the favor of the Moors, it's going to open up a floodgate. All the Moors are now going to start establishing their states, and all the Negroes, blacks, and colors are going to now start choosing between the entire submission of the empire. Now, suddenly, after that case and the judgment comes out that's favorable to the Moors, suddenly now we got all the bodies that we need to fill the positions. You see? So from the case is going to open up such a can of worms that part of that can of worms is going to be a bunch of so-called black people and a bunch of Moorish Americans who's going to course correct and now start establishing their own state governments throughout Morocco. That amount of people is the people that we need to also fill the positions for the United States of Morocco. After that process happens, after that takes place, we enact now the Constitution for the United States of Morocco. Once we have the United States of Morocco established, then we can go to the United Nations and say, okay, United States, you got to get up out of there. The United States of Morocco now will take over. It's all a step-by-step process as we all are going through our varying stages of advancement. I hope I answered the question.
Oh, I agree with you, and I feel you 100%. I appreciate that great wisdom. I just feel like the seat is there and it's dusty and it's waiting for us.
It is dusty. Well, it ain't dusty because they've been sitting on it. It's actually very well. The damn leather is cracked up because they've been sitting in it for the 5.
But from what I'm understanding, the entire world is waiting on us, right?
The entire world is waiting on us. That's exactly right.
So this is how we need to be thinking instead of just small individual cases.
So that is how we thinking. Yeah, that is how we thinking.
Of course. Yeah.
Yep. So you see the process, you see the strategy. This chestnut checkers. We're playing a strategy here, and it's checking boxes as you go along, slowly but surely, little by little. We need to bring certain things together. It's no different than the different little boxes that we've got to check with our own individual state governments. We got to check several boxes. So there's several boxes within state sovereignty and independence. There's like 10 boxes to establish your state of your government. What is that? Your constitution, your flag, your seal, your oath of allegiance, your declaration of statehood, etc. Those are several boxes that has to be checked off just in sovereignty and independence. The next one is integrity of domains. What are the boxes? Acceding to the treaties, enacting legislation, establishing your nationality paperwork, your state ID, your tags, your et cetera. It's so many boxes, and many of which deals with legislation. We got to establish legislation for so much and institute so many reforms. So there's a bunch of boxes within integrity of domains. Then when you go into economic liberty without any inequality, there's many boxes in there as well. So that's a bunch of boxes that we got to check just to establish our state and to have it operate properly. Now imagine putting together the entire United States of Morocco. There's a bunch of boxes that need to be checked. And we've been out of the game for so long, we rusty as hell. We're like the Tin Man, like the good brother J. Bay pointed out the other day in our class. We're like the Tin Man and we are rusty.
Interjection, brother Abdul.
Yes, brother.
I would say while the boxes are being filled, and some aspects should just try to be under commonality. I understand we might say we have different statehood of the United States of Morocco, but to simplify things and to be more structured, I would say to just make a lot. For example, a biometric card, aka an ID. I was saying yes. I would recommend that we keep things on the commonality. For example, a biometric card, which is what they classify as ID card. I don't use the word ID because ID is identification of dead, and we're not dead. So the biometric card is what actually give a description of whom you are. And I say until we are officially established, things that we can create now for private and public navigation and commercial activity, that things be implemented with commonality, so it can be, people can be identified as whom they are without particular distinction. So if I go from the east all the way to the west, so I will still be known for being a part of the United States of Morocco, instead of being recognized as my territories from the east and your territories from the west. I hear
Islam, what you're talking about is mirror imaging what the United States has done. You got the United States of America, or the United States, and then you've got the 50 different interdependent states who all report to the United States. And you can travel back and forth to and fro between states, right? Each state has their own state ID, which is your driver's license, etc. But you all fall under the jurisdiction of the United States. Same exact thing. So I agree, and that is part of the process.
But what I'm saying, brother, for clarification, is until we get there, for example, the whole United States has one passport. Okay, so until each statehood is well established according to the Rhoder and Sexton and the Constitution that they might created, and Iroquois Constitution, whatever means they choose to follow. Therefore, we should just I propose that things stay under a simplified manner of using instrument of commonality right across the board. For example, you mentioned tag, okay? So instead of having a tag that identify you in a particular demarcation on the mass land, we would all use the same tag, irrespective of where geographically we are on the land, until each state would establish effectively come together, and now the national within that territory can say, okay, you know what, I want to have a tag identify me to that geographical area or so forth. But I'm just saying, so to just to bring across growth, we keep it in simplicity and commonality as much as possible.
Islam,
if I could, there's a few things I want to talk about, but that particular aspect would require each Moorish state government to collaborate on that matter.
Absolutely.
To draft their own legislation for their government to recognize that particular instrument as being acceptable in their state. So there's a few things I want to touch on real quick. First, thanks, Wazir, because a lot of the things you were talking about, I was gonna touch on it, but then eventually you mentioned it. You know what I mean? So we're on the same page there. What I would suggest going forward for AMPAG at least is to, just like what me and Sister Nova had discussed, setting up like a study guide for each treaty class that we've had, as well as the bill, because we tend to discuss some very important information in these bills. and create a study guide for that, put it up on the website so that we can then refer more that come in later on, instead of repeating, the same conversations we had like 10,
Correct.
15 classes ago.
Mhm.
Refer them to the website to go check that out, because it has the same information. That way we don't spend like an extra 2-3 hours repeating ourselves.
Correct. Agreed. You got something
So,
else? Okay, I thought that was someone named iPhone got their hands up. Sorry, I don't know how long you had it up. You got the floor. And thank you, brother Hakeem. Excellent points as usual. Go
Well,
ahead.
as well.
once the states are up, now you have a place where you can actually expatriate under what, the 1868 expatriation laws.
You will be
What they,
repatriate. But go ahead.
well, out of expatriate from the United States back into your own land, back
That would be repatriating.
repatriation. Okay,
Correct. Yeah.
so all of this stuff, when you look at it, they have all of this stuff set up for us, but because we didn't have anywhere to go. So, even with the there's a thing with the president and the public law 856, what they call the because everything's been under trusteeship, the Alien Custodian Act, which deals with the Department of Justice. Now this goes back to the brother about the recoupment and everything else. So
Yeah.
the Department of Justice, they have the United States trustees. So the United States trusteeship and the Federal Reserve are the custodians of alien property. So we have to deal with these two people. Plus, right now they're under FEMA. So a lot of things are set up. So when the brother is talking about licenses and all of those things, once you've gone through the of dealing with getting your estate and everything, because it is based on individuals, but coming together as a collective, you have to set up bonding, because they don't have any bonds because the Pope pulled that, but we have to supply the bonding to cover our people in the land for any of these acts as government and everything else, what they would call insurance. Now that deals with UCC and everything else. But a lot of these things are like the United Nations said that the United States was the #1 terrorist organization. And they told Russia, wherever you find terrorism, to stomp it out. So when Trump named Antifa, that white nationalist organization, as domestic terrorism, it was Russians that came over here and got their leadership. And this is why they were holding Brittany Griner, because part of the Moorish Empire is attached to Russia, because Archduke Ferdinand was the last Moorish emperor.
Absolutely.
Russia is Morocco. They're under the jurisdiction of Morocco. They're one of the.
Yes, it's part of Russia. It's Russia. That's why they say, Sarah Palin said, "Oh, I can see Russia from my doorstep."
Correct. Because he was in Alaska.
Yeah. So a lot of the people of us reaching out to establish diplomatic relations is one part of setting up a government where other governments recognize you. This was the deal with Haiti, of them being extorted by the French. If they wanted to be recognized, they had to pay. But because Haiti is actually part of the Ouachita Empire, because of the French thing in there. So a lot of things are plates and all of that stuff is, I've seen that stuff. They have it already. I don't know who holds it, but they have all of that stuff already.
The problem with the Washington is that they're not established properly under international law with 3 branches of government, et cetera. It's set up as a sort of like a
Brother,
monarchy.
yes, I know.
Yeah. Mhm.
I know.
That's the only
But
problem with, yeah. Go ahead.
but the way they got Pope Benedict was there were some priests, they went to The Hague. So for war crimes and everything, people might have to look at The Hague and going under the common law, because that's how they got charges on him and really on Pope Francis also. So
Well, ICJ is located. ICC, the ICJ, those organs are in The Hague.
okay.
So that is definitely the direction in which we're going in the next couple of months. So yeah, I agree with you, good brother. Great point of reference. Anyone else before we close out? It is getting a little late, and I know people got to go to their jobs in the morning. Anyone else got any points of interest or concerns, questions? Islam. Well, I'll say to close out, we got to remember and keep in mind and be focused on the fact that there's a new national movement taking place, which is eclipsing the old paradigm. And this new movement deals with international law and statehood, establishing our 3 branches of government and utilizing the treaties to do so for our salvation, because that's exactly what it's there for. It's Moroccan law. Our ancestors put it together, or at least it was done in the spirit of our ancestors, because the Sultan at the time wasn't even one of us anyway. He was a colonist himself. But he thought proper to give back to give back the authority and the power of the empire back to the Moors after the Treaty of Madrid. Because keep in mind, the Treaty of Madrid was a legalization of colonization. That's actually what the Treaty of Madrid is. It's a legalization of colonization, while at the same time still giving the Moors the opportunity to establish their state governments and choose between the entire submission to the laws of the empire, according to Article 15, as well as Article 8, which deals with the protected persons list. So we've got a document that's set to go out dealing with that particular protection, the protected persons list of all the nationals in our state. But then after that, subsequently, the subsequent legislation, I could say that, but treaty would be the Act of Algeciras. So the Treaty of Madrid, even though it was a legalized colonization, it gave us back our nationality. Very interesting. And then 20 years later or so, 26 years later, they came out with the Act of Algeciras, which was a decolonization document. So one was the legalization of colonization, and then the next treaty, subsequent treaty, was a decolonization document, giving back the powers to the Moors in the spirit of our ancestors, keeping in mind that it was a pale Arab that was holding the seat of the Sultan. So I say all that to say, this is why international law is the new understanding. We cannot keep studying and enforcing municipal laws, their constitution, their case laws from their Supreme Courts, etc. We have to go into the higher degrees, which is international law, and according to their constitution, which is Article 6, treaties are the supreme law of the land. So why are we dabbling in anything else other than the treaties? And the treaties got our names in it. Moorish governments, Sharifian authorities, Moorish subjects and proteges, Mohammedan laws, Moroccan laws. These are the terms that's in there identifying the parties as the dominant parties within that contract, that being the Moroccans or the Moorish officials, the Moorish governments, the Sharifian authorities. So the focus, Moors, is international law and statehood. I'll repeat it again. The focus is international law and statehood. And we just went over Resolution 1514, which deals with decolonization, another decolonization document. There's several decolonization documents, but there's no more powerful document than the Treaty of the Act of Algeciras, because not only does it give us back the power, but it also gives us the authority to tax the foreigners, amongst other things. And it's not just about taxes, it's about instituting reforms. What are the reforms? Educational, judicial, well, first, administrative, judicial, educational, economic, financial, and military reforms. These are the reforms. Did you hear what I said? Those are the 6 principles. I'll say it again. Administrative, that deals with the government, right? There's 3 branches of government. Judicial, that deals with your judicial branch, as well as the organ of the United Nations, which is the ICJ and the ICC, right? Educational, why? We all have been miseducated, us and our Albayans. So educational reforms are necessary. Economic, financial, and last but not least, military reforms. Why do we have the authority to institute military reforms? Well, because the military and the police are under our authority, Moors. So whenever we think we need military, we already got the military. That would be the United States Army, United States Air Force, United States Marines, United States Navy, Coast Guard, the UN peacekeepers, the military that China has, the military that India has, the military that Brazil has, the military that France has, the military that Great Britain has. All those militaries on planet Earth are under the authority of Morocco, because all those countries, those Christian powers, are in Morocco. They're signatory powers. And the point is to take back control of the United Nations Charter. That's our goal, Moors. That's what we're taking them to the ICJ for, to force them to relinquish extraterritorial jurisdiction so that now we can take our place in the affairs of men, worship under our own vine and fig tree, and finally start to confess our own. So to close out, I want to give honors once again to our illustrious prophet, Noble Drew Ali, for his great works of bringing us back into the marvelous light out of darkness and teaching us to love instead of hate, teaching us the 5 cardinal principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and letting us and reminding us that our ultimate job here on planet Earth is to uplift fallen humanity. Why? Because humanity has fallen. Why? Because the Moors have fallen. So when the Moors rise up, the world will rise up. Islam, I yield with that. And I wish you all a wonderful night tonight. And may the blessings of Allah be upon you all. Peace and love.
Islam.
Islam family. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu
Peace.
alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Excellent discussion. I love y'all. Appreciate it, Morris.